How's it going, everybody? This is the Uncanny Omar. How do I sound? Is that better? Louder? Flip, flip. Let's go. Crisis can hear me. I guess that's all that matters. Can you all hear me? That also matters.
Omar's going to talk, and then I'm just going to do a lip reading of what Omar says. So he could be saying anything.
How's everybody doing? Welcome to Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And to my right is a face that I love seeing on the channel because it means we're going to have some fun. It's my buddy Crisis. How's it going?
It's going really well. It is the dead of winter here in New Zealand. I experienced my first sub-freezing degree temperatures in 9 years. It's a total shock to my body. So I'm as awake as I possibly can be for this experience, Omar. And I'm ready to get into a tangled web of Spider-Man collected editions, my friend.
Wow. So poetically put. I can't outdo that, so I'm not even going to try.
Well, and this is by popular demand. We did this for X-Men back in January. We did a video of every flagship X-Men book, if you can do it in Omnibus, how it has been collected in Omnibus and multiple omnibuses. It has tens of thousands of views. It got so many comments, which I've responded to almost every single one. And the drum that was being beaten the entire time, Omar, was, when will you be doing this for Spider-Man, Avengers, and Batman? And so, you know, I hear Spider-Man's about to have a big week. Have you been hearing something about Spider-Man in the news?
Yeah, I was really jealous of this guy named Chip Zdarsky because for some reason he got to go to a premiere that he has no business going to. But I'm really happy for him and everybody else that Bendis got to go to the premiere. Yeah, a lot of the creators stayed in California past the convention to go to the premiere because they got invited to the premiere. And that's the right thing to do, right? Invite the people that inspired the movie. Invite the people whose works you're borrowing. Adapting. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean borrowing. Borrowing is like you're stealing someone somewhere. Hey, Batmantha. Oh, wow. Calling you out.
I don't know. It gets cold. It's colder down here. I don't know. Whenever she's talking about weather up there, that's like hundreds of miles away from me.
Are you serious? Oh, God. About Fujimori? We're doing Marvel Omnis. Marvel Omnis. Taschen is beautiful. Taschen is big. But, well, never mind. I better not finish that sentence. I'll get let's get that Spider-Man next chapter Omni. Oh,
one of the gaps that we have, right? Like doing this, you know, I'm not a Spider-Man obsessee quite on the level of X-Men, but I do own a lot of Spider-Man. I've been reading a lot of Spider-Man a long time. And what's really interesting is the what's left of Spider-Man.
Yeah. I'll take freezing too, man. Let's see.
Kia ora, New Zealand Hogster.
Oh, looking forward to the stream, watching my two favorite YouTubers. Thank you so much. They did not invite me. I wrote my own Spider-Man story in my notebook. All right. So I think we wanted to, this is, by the way, perfect timing to do this because I just went through the whole round of announcements for Marvel Comics. I was waiting. I told Crisis when we were scheduling this, let's wait until at least I announce Amazing Spider-Man Omnibus Volume 8, which is effing crazy to think about because there was a time when we didn't know we were going to get anything past 1, and then 2 came out. Then we're like, well, surely they'll stop at 4. 3 or 4 will be it. Then Conan changed the game. Conan was like, here's 7. I remember announcing Conan Omnibus Volume 6, and I was like, this is further than any of the Marvel superheroes has gotten. But yeah, it really puts a smile on my face because that's what I was dreaming about when I started collecting these books. That one day I would have Amazing Spider-Man Omnibus 1 through 10 on my shelf. Did you mute me for a reason?
No, I was trying to. I think everybody's saying you're still kind of quiet.
Really?
Yeah. Or I'm loud, but I don't. I mean, I am loud, but
Crisis' voice is too high compared to Omar. Can you guys make it equal? Sure, we'll do it live. If you go into the audio and you know where it says automatically adjust mic volume, you can bring your mic volume down a little. I'm bringing.
Yeah, I've got mine there. I don't know because I don't know. I don't want to blow anybody out of the water, but this is normal Crisis volume.
You should come in a little a little hot. But no, Omar sounds low compared. I think it's just the volume. So yeah, you can bring your mic down a little bit. Like like I'm at 200 right now. If you want to put yours at like 125, see if that sounds better.
All right, let's give it a go. Everybody will let us know
Thank you
how it's
all. But
going,
anyway,
and we'll tweet.
I announced the Amazing Spider-Man Volume 8, and to my surprise, people, for the most part, were really happy. That was really cool. I thought people were gonna get mad. I think people probably would have gotten mad if they had like one more issue that the Roger Stern Omnibus did not have. I don't know. What do you think? Oh, we're both fine. Okay. Well, thank you.
I find it a little frustrating, but I like to know that Marvel has a plan, and part of the plan sometimes is just pushing ahead. I think the longer they made us wait for it to see that it wasn't, and it was never going to please everybody. There's just like with the Iron Man omnibus with Michelinie and Leighton Romita Jr., there's always two camps. And so I think if they're going to do it, pull off the Band-Aid, get it out there. At least they didn't reprint the Roger Stern book like a week ago or anything like that. So I'm just happy to see it push forward, because honestly, it's that stuff that's after a volume 8 where we don't have it at all in Omnibus. We just got to get there.
Well, I think I don't want them. I mean, this is just me. I don't want them to retire the Spider-Man by Roger Stern Omnibus, because I really do feel like it's one of those classic books that if you don't want to buy every Spider-Man Omni, it definitely belongs on your shelf. So for me, I hope they continue reprinting it one day. It's kind of like what DC decided to do with the Batman by Neil Adams. Like they're retiring that, and it's going to be replaced by the Bronze Age. So who knows? Yes, please hit that like button. Thank you for that reminder. All right, Crisis, are we ready, my friend?
I mean, we might as well give it a try. We're going to keep an eye on chat to let us know how the volume stuff goes. And Omar and I will continue tweaking quietly, but we will not keep addressing it
Been
out
tweaking
loud.
all my life, man. Omar's volume's good. It sounds like he's distant from the mic. Right up here next to the microphone. I swear. It's like, look, I'm practically eating the thing. Is that better?
Now you sound loud.
Oh, God. I don't know. This is such a weird. Maybe
Something about it looks better, too. No, wait. Now it's looking
you
worse.
son of a bitch. I knew you were going to say that. Quit stealing my material. All right. Let's go ahead and start. Share screen. Here we go. Oh, let me get the super chat really quick. Do you think we'll never see a collected editions line that includes all the Spider-Man titles mapped together? I would say never say never. I would say, oh my gosh, if they ever do compendiums. Again, my idea for Uncanny X-Men and all the mutants together, I would love to see compendiums take that route. Like, be a little brave and include everything. That would be awesome.
I think it's going to happen. I mean, they see the success they're having with X-Men Blue and Gold and that people are rebuying it. They see what DC is doing with the Triangle Era Superman omnibuses, as well as the DC Finest with Batman. I think that the drum is beating a little bit. The Green Lantern compendiums, there's always a little bit of zeitgeist in the collected editions industry of like what people are looking for. Sometimes they're looking for cheap compact comics. Sometimes they're looking for prestige formats. I really think people are looking for all you can eat, give it to me perfect sort of books right now. And it's kind of astounding in the past 18 months how many of that all I can eat, give it to me perfectly volumes have hit the market. I think the G.I. Joe and Transformers Kickstarters were part of that too. So, Marvel, I always say they can't release all the bangers all at once. Just because the market is demanding that doesn't mean they're going to rush out, 20 volumes of Spider-Man in perfect order. But certainly, since there's only Epic Collections for Amazing in the classic era, could we get future omnibuses or compendiums of everything combined? Maybe it will happen.
I would love that. DC compacts, my eyes couldn't take it.
Oh, yeah, I'm a little too blind.
I need readers. I don't need to look older. Thoughts on Masterworks leaving Marvel to be printed elsewhere? It's not thoughts. I actually know the behind the scenes of all that. Actually, meeting with Corey this week to talk about that. I was supposed to announce it. I talked about this earlier, but Marvel didn't approve all the covers yet because they're doing 3 different covers for the people that want it. The 2 best in the business. Thank you so much. The tree formerly known as Mike. We really appreciate that. My blue and gold order got canceled. Oh, I'm so sorry. We gotta find One Wheelchair X a blue and gold. Which one? The new one? Or the Mutant
Well,
Genesis or
we don't have the second one yet, do we? I don't think
yeah, but
it's here.
they could have pre-ordered it and got
Oh,
canceled.
maybe.
Yeah. You know what? I want to have a rank off with Crisis one day. Just
We know
saying.
I have done a
I
few
know you
ranks with
have.
one wheelchair on my channel. And the thing is, he and I agree a lot, which I know is not a
Yeah,
problem
no.
you and I have as often.
Agree with you. Ugh. All
Oh,
right,
all right.
here we go. Let's go ahead and start. How to collect Spider-Man in Omnibus format. You're in condition and crushing Crisis as of big shout out to Crisis for putting all this together. By the way, this is another huge slideshow. Just makes it so pretty and easy to read. So let me actually remove the little Near Mint Condition logo. There you go.
And we'll make
Oh,
this even bigger when we get to the ones that have lots of titles and things on them. Don't worry.
do the whole
We'll
thing.
hide.
You don't have to see
Yeah.
our face. I'll hide behind my microphone.
Well, look,
Okay.
y'all, the reason this is even required is Spider-Man is complex, and he is complex in a completely different way than X-Men. He's complex in a more similar way to Batman and Superman. He has appeared continuously in monthly comic books from 1963 to the present day, and in some of those periods, he's had as many as 4 monthly ongoing titles, as well as a quarterly title, as well as miniseries. So at points, Spider-Man has generated over 50 issues of solo Spider-Man series a year. Then at other points, he's gone bi-weekly, which means also he's generated 30 plus issues usually a year. There's always a lot of Spider-Man, and it's very often in multiple streams. And that has been happening for us for now more than 60 years. So what does that mean if you want Spider-Man in Omnibus? So we are not talking about Tations. We are not talking about epics, masterworks. We're talking about omnibuses, because we know you're like being an omnibus collectors, and omnibuses are a good gauge of how well covered something is in a kind of permanent way because of all of the formats that we love to collect, and I have many of them on the shelves surrounding me. Marvel tends to go back to print most frequently on omnibuses. So once something's an omnibus, there's like always a hope that we could get it again and that we could fill up our shelves.
So, not announcing any reprints. I just want to.
Nope.
I forgot to mention that earlier.
No announcements.
No announcements here. Not a mapping show, but we do have to talk about some mapping. So it's crazy because it's one guy, right? Compared to a team of X-Men and Avengers, and he had all these titles. People could not get enough of Spider-Man. I think he was, in Marvel Comics, he was the first character to get 2 titles in the same month, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, actually, Human Torch had Strange Tales very early in Fantastic Four, but that was not incredibly long-lived. And plus, that was a team
shared.
versus a solo.
Yeah,
in terms of
shared, right?
Yeah, in terms of two solos for a character, Spider-Man and with Spectacular Magazine in 68 and also Marvel Team Up in 72. Great example, which is a great reason to look at the next slide, actually. So in the chat, there's so many kinds of Spider-Man fans who love so many different kinds of Spider-Man. And we want to be really clear about what we're going to talk about as the scope of this so nobody is disappointed. So we are covering every ongoing Marvel 616 continuity series with Peter Parker, or for brief periods where Ben Reilly has stood in for Peter Parker, we're covering those. So this is not a complete reading order. We don't necessarily have every Spider-Man issue, every original graphic novel, every Spider-Man limited series, certainly not every guest appearance. We are not covering Ultimate Spider-Man. We're not covering Miles. We're not covering Ben Reilly as Scarlet Spider or Kane. We're not covering Spider-Man Noir, Spider-Punk. This is a 616 Peter Parker omnibus shelf. If you love this and you want to see us come back and do something about all the other Spider people, including all the Spider-Women and Spider-Gwen, let us know. And Omar and I love those comic books too, and we could come back and talk about that. But there is so much just to talk about with Peter Parker that we're just talking Peter Parker, but we are talking any Peter Parker ongoing series. I think we got them all. You'll tell us if we've missed any. So Amazing Spider-Man, Marvel Team Up, Spectacular Spider-Man, Web of Spider-Man, Adjectiveless Spider-Man, Sensational Spider-Man, Superior Spider-Man, Avenging Spider-Man. It is all fair game for this if it was in 616 and it starred Peter Parker.
Well said. All right. Next slide. So it's broken down by this era. Most of the time, I think when we talk of eras with comic books, it's always Golden Age, Silver Age, Bronze Age, Modern Age. It's a lot more complicated than that when you throw in so many issues. like Crisis said, he character had 4 titles a month at one time. So we've got him broken down by Silver Age, Bronze Age, Black Suit, To Kraven's Last Hunt, the Michelinie-Era, the Clone Saga, Post-Clone Saga, the Next Chapter, Spider-Man by JMS, Brand New Day, Spider-Man by Dan Slott, Spider-Man by Nick Spencer, and Zeb Wells. That's how it's broken down. So, everybody, hold on to your butts.
And some of the reason we broke it down this way was just because they're clear divisions. Some of the reasons we broke it down this way is because there's a specific omnibus break in those periods, so it's easy to show. And then sometimes it just came down to how much could fit onto the screen at one time. So, wow, let me sound that out. Same era as Jakumar. There's so many Spider-Man comics you could read before seeing Brand New Day. We don't all know what the plot of Brand New Day is yet, but since they named it the Brand New Day, and since there are 3 Brand New Day omnibuses, you certainly could have a lot of fun reading any of the material in those omnibuses. And the omnibuses are not your only hope there. It has been released in many other formats over the years, original trades, it's on Marvel Unlimited. But Omar and I are going to talk about the pros and cons of each of these eras for us as overall Spider readers, as well as like for somebody who maybe is just getting into Spider-Man for the first time. I will say, and Omar, before we even click on the first era, as I was going through this and thinking about it, Spider-Man's different really than almost any other hero that has this much material, certainly more than like Batman or Superman. And I'm talking about heroes that are almost always the same person, right? And that there's not a lot of tonally different Spider-Man. He has different scopes for his adventures sometimes, but like in Batman, you can get like lighthearted Batman, 60s Batman, hard-bitten crime Batman, weird Batman. Spider-Man kind of is always Spider-Man. Like there's no real option of like, I want this kind of Spider-Man or that kind of Spider-Man. Would you agree, at least in 616, would you agree with that or disagree with that?
Yeah, I think the Spider-Man we mostly get is the down on his luck Spider-Man, right? Like throughout the 60s, the 70s, 80s, 90s. Well, okay. Most of the 90s. There was that really dark era of the 90s. But for the most part, yeah, you're right. The character doesn't change because Marvel doesn't have the I guess the clutterness that DC did with the different Earths, right? It is one Earth, and you're reading about one character. The character you're reading about now is the same character you could have been reading about in the 60s, except for One More Day changing a little bit of things, but we'll talk about that here in a second.
Well, right. And his relationship status is often the thing that distinguishes the runs from each other. But Omar is an even bigger webhead than me. So for each of these eras, we're going to start out by trying to characterize them for you before we get into the omnibuses. So let's just crack in. So this is Silver Age Spider-Man. Now, I know, we all know that the Silver Age technically ends for some comic book companies in 1970. At Marvel, some Bronze Age stuff doesn't start until 72. There's not like a hard and fast, everything must be Bronze Age here date, just like there isn't for the Silver Age either. We're just talking about the Silver Age Spider-Man as the period where he primarily had one ongoing title, which was Amazing Spider-Man. So that is where we get 1962 to 1972. Omar, I think what's so great about this period for me is you still can hand this to a kid or some reader of any age, and they will still like this. It is one of the most ultimately easy to engage with comic books of all time, especially for the Silver Age. And I know some people prefer Ultimate Spider-Man, but this is unlike things like X-Men where we'll be like, oh, don't start the start necessarily. You really can start Spider-Man at the start and be a very happy reader. What do you feel like about that?
Yes. Yeah, I agree because my kids read it. My kids read the Silver Age stuff, like volumes 1, 2, and 3 of the Mighty Marvel Masterworks. Man, they really liked it. Like, they never once complained about how wordy it was, which is really cool because, we hear that complained a lot, including from myself. Not really a complaint, but more so a warning. Like, by the way, set some time aside. This is going to take you a while to read. They never complained about that. Like,
no, and I think there's
surprising because, well, I was just going to say, the books were meant to be read by kids.
Yeah.
Forget that.
And he was written as a teenage hero who at first was being written for probably younger kids to appreciate. And then later, as the Marvel mythos grew and they became more of a counterculture force, and I talked to Omnidog about this a lot, as we get towards the 70s, he's being written more savvy, and he kind of grows with the readers, not just in being aged up a couple of years, but the book gets a little bit more interesting and challenging too. I mean, they have plots about protests and drugs and things as we get closer to the 70s. But so we both agree, this is incredibly accessible. You could do a lot worse than to start here. Let's look at how it looks in Omnibus, because guess what? This is a gapless coverage period. So the main titles in Omnibus are Amazing Fantasy 15, of course, his debut, and then Amazing Spider-Man 1 to 104 and annuals 1 through 8. There's also some retcon titles that fit into this period, including a couple of extra issues of Amazing Fantasy and Untold Tales of Spider-Man. There are no Omnibus gaps. It is completely collected in full, nobody left behind. If we look at the next slide, we'll see how we're mapping for this, because it's different than the way we did it for X-Men, just a little bit. So you can see that you can get all of this era of Spider-Man in 3 omnibuses. Done. The end. Volume 1 takes you through 1 through 38, Volume 2, 39 through 67, Volume 3, 68 through 104. Some of those annuals are just covers only because they were reprint annuals. There's also Spectacular Spider-Man magazine in this era, which was just 2 issues of a magazine-sized comic. That's in Volume 2. And then later in the 90s, during the Clone Saga, they still wanted something starring Peter Parker out in the market. And so there's Untold Tales of Spider-Man, which has been collected completely in an omnibus as well. So you don't have to read that, but it is threaded into the original issues if you want to see a slightly more modern take, although still 30 years old at this point. And this is Silver Age Spider-Man. It's easy to have a complete bookshelf if you can track the books down. Omar?
Great. I mean, the only other thing that you could add to this that is a retcon material is the Spider-Man Blue. That's it.
Oh, that's a great point.
And that's never been collected in an omnibus format. I mean, I'm sorry. It's collected in the Jeff Loeb.
There's like a color omnibus. Yeah.
But it's never been a part of the Spider-Man Omni, right? Like it hasn't never been a part of that, which really, I don't know if they ever will. Maybe, I would hope so, because we've had other retcon series collected in omnibus format. Looking at you, Wolverine Origin, right? It's possible, depending on when it was written. So, yeah.
All right, well then so again, we're only talking about the main titles and we're only talking about omnibuses. For example, there have been other flashback miniseries. There was one called The Shadow of the Goblin or Shadow of the Red Goblin. Recently, actually it's pretty good. I really enjoyed it, but that is one miniseries. There have been many, many miniseries that have inserted back. This is not a reading order. If you want a reading order, Omar has done that on video. I have one of the most comprehensive and long-running Spider-Man reading orders on the entire internet on Crushing Crisis. You can go look at that. We're talking about omnibus coverage of flagship titles. And some people, Omar, are saying you're still a little bit quiet, but I'm sure we will work on that as we continue to the Bronze Age.
How am I still low? You guys really can't hear me. I really think.
It sounds fine to me. And now I have an echo of me over there.
Yeah, because I had to turn off my echo cancellation because people said they can't hear me. Okay, so everybody can hear me now, right? All right, we're going to move on to the Bronze Age. This is 1972 to 1984. It's pretty low. All right, I'm going to eat this damn microphone. It's I wonder what it is. I wonder if there was some kind of weird update with StreamYard. But you seem fine.
I've been struggling for days, and you still have to turn off echoes.
I mean, struggling personally or StreamYard struggling?
all of
struggling. Okay. Okay. So the Bronze Age. Let's look at this.
So Omar,
go ahead.
Oh, I still hear an echo of me.
Let me turn that off then. Now, go ahead.
Okay. Now, I will say this is probably the Spider-Man period I know the least, so I'm going to have to go with you as kind of the judge of quality and the pros and cons. What are the pros of starting here, and what are the pros of this period?
The pros of starting here is you have a lot of the John Romita era in here. You've got some classic stories, death of a few characters, and I know I hate to say that as a pro, but it really does propel the character forward. Like whenever you're dealing with death of really important characters. You have the first appearance of Punisher through here, which he went on to blow up. And also his second ongoing series with Marvel Team Up. And then Spectacular Spider-Man starting immediately after that. There were those 2 issues of Spectacular Spider-Man that were like magazine size. Plus, I've fallen in love with Russ Andrew, so huge fan of his artwork. Jerry Conway taking over the book. Yeah, there's a lot of pros here. I will say 150. No, that would be the next.
It's 251. Yeah, that's a typo.
No, you're good. You're good. Plus, we get the annuals in here. Yeah, and again, all of it collected in. Well, the Amazing Spider-Man stuff has been collected in Omnibus format. We're still waiting on Spectacular and Marvel Team Up to continue because we only have one Spectacular Omnibus, and then we have one Marvel Team Up Omnibus.
Now, I will say to people who, a lot of comic fans see multiple different titles, and you could go, yeah, let's go to the next slide. They see multiple different titles, and they think, well, I've got to read all those things. Spider-Man really doesn't work like that in this period. Marvel Team Up is its own kind of series of one-off adventures where he does something with one guest star in one issue. And even if the story continues, the guest star changes in the next issue. It is very ignorant of what is happening generally in the main Spider-Man title. You do not have to read Spider-Man Marvel Team Up threaded in with Amazing if you don't want to. I don't really feel like you gain a lot. I like a lot of Marvel Team Up, but it's not like that. And then even when Spectacular begins, which is not until midway through this period, and you can see how around where that falls, Spectacular kind of has its own identity. And so this is not like how Batman and Detective Comics were at that time. It isn't even like how Superman and Action Comics were at that time. Spectacular is aware of what's going on in Amazing, but they really do work separately, and you can gain a lot from reading them together, but you don't have to. Now, looking at these in omnibuses, Omar said at the very top of the stream that it's amazing that we got an announcement for Amazing Spider-Man Omnibus Volume 8. Once again, we have this entire period in Omnibus for Amazing X-Men. It's all handled. Or I'm sorry, Amazing Spider-Man. You can't take the X out of me. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 gets us through this entire period. And you will note that those boxes are getting smaller and smaller as they go down, covering less years, because the omnibuses are getting smaller. For Marvel Team Up, also in this round of announcements, Omar announced Marvel Team Up Volume 2 coming from Marvel in 2027. Woo! Which was the kind of longest, the farthest back Spider-Man line in terms of waiting for omnibus announcement. But as you can see, that new volume is only going to take us through 1977, so we still need more Marvel Team Up omnibuses, another 2, to get us anywhere close to where these other lines have collected. Now, if we look at Spectacular, we do have a Spectacular Volume 1, and that was a case where Marvel actually mapped it to fit around another omnibus very well. Spectacular 1 handshakes directly with Spider-Man by Roger Stern. Spider-Man by Roger Stern basically is a giant omnibus with 2 Masterworks omnibuses worth of content in it. It's got a whole another 20 issues of Spectacular Spider-Man, and it has pretty much the exact same contents of Amazing Spider-Man Omnibus Volume 8, aside from some extra non-amazing issues that are in Volume 8. So Roger Stern, I didn't put in the Amazing chart because right now Amazing has Omnibus Volume 8, which kind of takes care of it, but you could interchange Amazing Spider-Man Volume 8 with Roger Stern if you so desire. The only things you'll be missing are the official Marvel tryout book being in ASM Volume 8. All the main issues are the same. So Omar, what would you say about the omnibus coverage in this period, having been the one to just announce 2 of them very recently?
I'm very excited for the Marvel Team Up because that stuff has never been collected in omnibus format outside of, 1 or 2 issues here and there. I know I may be alone here, but I'm glad that Spectacular Omnibus Volume 2 was not in this round because that is going to be doing some heavy double dipping with that Roger Stern Omni. If you look at that as 43 to 61, that is a lot of issues. But then again, that also has all the Amazing Spider-Man issues too that you're going to be double dipping in. So I think 2 double dips. I'm surprised we didn't get Spectacular 2 before Amazing 8, though.
Same.
It really surprises me that we got 7 and 8 back to back. I think had 7's not out. 7's out, right? Yeah. 7 just came out. It's crazy. That's Marvel Team Up. That's what the basis of Marvel Team Up is. Hey, this guy's really popular. Let's team him up with lesser known characters. And bring up
very Very occasionally, Human Torch is the main team up, but I think that's
Oh yeah.
less than 10 issues across all 150 issues. It's the idea is that it says Marvel team up at the top of the cover, and then it says Spider-Man and then it's the logo of whoever else is there: Namor, Daredevil, the Wasp, Scarlet Witch. And very rarely is it the same team up 2 issues in a row. Even if it's a continuing story, it'll be Scarlet Witch in one, and then she's in a coma, and then it's Doctor Strange in the next one. So it's very episodic.
If you're afraid of double dipping, don't buy many Omnis. Well, you know what's funny? It's like I was actually talking to DC about that when we were having lunch. Yeah, people are going to be double and triple, quadruple dipping here in a couple of years because they have so many stories that they want to collect in omnibus format. I sound so tiny, like I'm trapped in another dimension. What is happening?
It's crazy to me because you sound fine to me, but I'm hearing you through StreamYard, not through YouTube. So maybe on YouTube there's something going on. While Omar tweaks a little bit more, I guess I'll
tweak. You take the next slide.
Well, I was just going to chime in one more thing before we continue, which is that that next Spectacular Spider-Man Omnibus Volume 2, it's probably going to continue to follow the rule of collecting either 3 or 4 Masterworks volumes each. They're pretty adherent to that in the Spider-Man line. So it will collect past Roger Stern, unlike Amazing's, or maybe it won't. Maybe they'll make it exactly Stern, but that would be a really small book, only collecting for 43 to 61. So the general thinking, and we could always be wrong, you never know what Marvel's going to do, is that the next Spectacular Spider-Man Omnibus, whenever it arrives, later in 2027, sometime in 2028, it'll probably collect past Stern. But as you can see, we can't even get all the way up to 1983 with full coverage in these books. Now, Marvel Team Up has been collected in some other ways. It does have Marvel Masterworks volumes. They only go to issue 90, so there's still going to be a gap after that. Spectacular Spider-Man also has Marvel Masterworks volumes that go a little deeper. But these are, you will hit a problem if you're trying to collect a full shelf of these, whether you want omnibuses or not. And if you want to see every collection format they've been in, you can go to crushingcrisis.com/Spider-Man. Doesn't matter if you put the hyphen or not, it'll work either way, and you can see how every issue of Spider-Man ever has been collected.
Okay, is that any better? Well, not you, Crisis.
Yeah, I can't report.
Yeah, you got hearing problems. It's not perfect sounding, but it's fine. Understand you all. Okay, good. Weird.
All right, let's go to the next one and let's see our beautiful faces again while we're talking about this. So this is not a long era, but again, I know there's an era Omar really likes. This is where I first talked about, or if I first started reading Spider-Man in this era, even before I started reading X-Men. The thing that's interesting me about this is the titles really do interconnect a lot more in this period. We're not in like full-on 90s, everything happened month to month, but like when he gets the black suit in one title, he's got the black suit in all the titles. When he's having relationship problems in one title, he's angsty about it more in the other titles. This is really when Spider-Man titles start to make sense to read together for me. And because this kicks off with the black suit out of Secret Wars, there's a great plot hook to start you out. So I think this is actually even a better place to start than that last Bronze Age part. The Bronze Age part is fun to start with if you want to see a lot of the characters that have spun out of Spider-Man. You want to see some Morbius. You want to see some Black Cat. You want to see all that stuff. But like, I like this era just as like one big chunky story. So Omar, what to you are the kind of the pros and cons and distinguishing features of the black suit era?
The pros is we got Venom out of it. The cons is that the Marvel didn't really believe in the new costume. So they immediately had him change back into the red and blue. And then when people were writing in, oh my gosh, where's the black costume? It's so cool. They put him back in the black costume. I love it. Yeah, this era is great. Some classic stories. I mean, Secret Wars, all of that. The introduction of the Black Costume Saga. But this is Roger Stern for a majority of the Amazing Spider-Man. And then, of course, Tom DeFalco taking over. So excited that, one day I don't know. This is a really good question. Will we get a Black Costume Saga Volume 2? Or will they just give us the Spider-Man?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting question. It's kind of part of the challenge of this era. You're going to see that of all of the Spider-Man eras, this is one of the only 2 remaining, maybe 3, where the coverage really falls apart in terms of omnibuses. And part of that is that Marvel has been reticent to fill in any amazing only parts of this. And so we have some big gaps in amazing. But let's look at the next slide and kind of see what this era includes and what's a gap, and then we'll look at the visual. So this includes main titles that are in Omnibus, Amazing Spider-Man, which we have the first 10 issues, and then we have the last few issues, and there's a big gap in the middle. Marvel Team Up only lasts another 10 issues into this era. We have that. It's in the Black Costume Saga Omnibus. Spectacular, we have the first 10 issues. Are you noticing a trend? It's because the Black Suit Saga Omnibus has 10 issues of everything. And then again, a 30-issue gap, just like Amazing Spider-Man. Web of Spider-Man, however, does not have that 30-issue gap problem because Web of Spider-Man has its own omnibus, actually 2. So we have all of Web of Spider-Man in this period, but not all of Amazing, which means we have a lot of gaps, and I kind of just defined the negative space. So there's the gap in Amazing, the gap in Spectacular, there's Spider-Man versus Wolverine 1, which we've had in X-Men omnibuses and Wolverine omnibuses, but we've never had them in Spider-Man omnibuses. And then there's also a number of graphic novels, one of which is Amazing Spider-Man Hooky. They have never been in an all-in-one Spider-Man omnibus as well. Omar? Omar's muted now. All sorts of fun happening today.
Oh, I was just going to say my 2 cents, like Kraven's Last Hunt. Absolutely. That's worth the price of admission for this this era. Look at that awesome Charles Vess cover to Web of Spider-Man. Plus you get Spidey versus Wolverine. That was awesome. Yeah, it's a great era. I'm hoping we get more of this Amazing Spider-Man. I hope they continue that trend of, hey, here's a volume 9. Oh my gosh, for next year, can you, like, or I guess not next year, but 2028? That would be awesome, dude. I would love that.
Well, let's take a look at that omnibus coverage.
This is when I started getting it. All right, here we go.
So here we're seeing some gaps. So first at that top, that big gray blue box that goes across the whole thing, that is the complete Black Costume Saga Omnibus. As I mentioned, it has about 10 issues of Amazing, Marvel Team Up, and Spectacular, so about a year. And then it just has the first issue of Web. So that cover takes you to the beginning of this. Then things get tricky. Amazing, we have that 30-issue gap that I mentioned. It's not an omnibus at all. It would be started to be covered in the next Amazing Spider-Man Omnibus Volume 9. It's going to be at least another year before we even get an announcement of that. Marvel Team Up is over at this point. It's replaced with Web, effectively. Spectacular, again, we've got a pretty big gap. And Web, we don't, because there's Web of Omnibus Volume 1. If you look at the bottom there, where the very bottom 2 boxes are connected to the Web box on the right, that is because the Web Omnibus has a very famous story, which Omar just mentioned, and which is the title of this slide, Kraven's Last Hunt. It's the first totally direct, read this issue, then this issue next crossover between the multiple Spider-Man titles that had ever happened, and we're almost 300 issues deep into them. And so Web has all the parts of that crossover, which means it has a little slice of Amazing, a little slice of Spectacular, and all of Web, and that's what ends this era. So we've got a sandwich of the collections of this era, and we've got one of the tasty fillings of that sandwich is just all of Web. We are missing the bologna and cheese, which is Amazing Spider-Man and Spectacular, or peanut butter and jelly, if you prefer. Omar, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, you went with bologna and cheese.
I've actually never had bologna my whole life. I don't even know what it is. It's imaginary to me.
What? How have you lived in America and never had bologna?
Because I was a vegetarian.
Oh, God bless you. Okay.
Plus, it's not, right. I like a meat that has the animal name. It's turkey. I've had turkey. Ham is pig. What is bologna, Omar? What is it? It's imaginary.
It's everything you love about ham and turkey put together. Just now, I started looking for Volume 1 of Amazing. They're all out of print. Spectacular, Web, Amazing. Marvel's making this difficult. I know. I don't know what American cheese is. It's yellow. It's made out of yellow. That's what it is.
Tastes like freedom. So there's just not a whole heck of a lot else to say about this in Omnibus. I think it's one of the most hotly demanded eras, and kind of like how in X-Men, people want the X-Men Inferno Aftermath because they're like, just keep collecting the whole line. Our good friend Ryan with his comment kind of highlighted that a couple of minutes ago. Like, as much as we do want more, and we want Amazing Spider-Man Volume 9 and we want Spectacular Volume 2, it would kind of be just as good to just have Black Suit Aftermath 1, 2, and possibly 3 to just continuing collecting all the way across this through this whole era. Either way, this is one of the eras most ripe for collection and with the most nostalgia about it.
Yeah, this is a great era. 84 to 87. Oh, man.
It just bums me out that I can't tell people to start here because I would, but some of that spectacular stuff isn't even on Marvel Unlimited because it's never been collected. Yeah.
Just buy one in 20. That's, wow. That's a lot further than I thought. Plenty of things I've had in America tasted like it was made out of yellow. New Warriors Forever. Thank you for that. You know what? Spider-Man was a part of the New Warriors. Just saying.
Wait, Omar, before you show our pictures again, because I haven't shown this off of my channel yet. Do you see what I'm holding in my hand? No!
Oh, wait, I'm so sorry. I thought you didn't.
I don't know what that was. I don't know where that could have come from.
I'm so bad at listening to instructions. You said don't. And then I did, like an idiot.
Oh, man.
Hey,
all right, let's continue.
Made out of yellow. Okay.
It does that taste like yellow as well. It's one more thing that tastes like yellow.
Yum.
All right. You know you love it. You know you want it. It's 90s Spider-Man, which actually starts prior to the 90s. This really starts at the end of 1987 with Todd McFarlane and David Michelinie coming onto the title. And this is when Amazing gets big. This is when comics are getting big. We're into the speculation boom. I have almost all of these in single issues as well as in epic collections. Omar, you're a lover of this area of Spider-Man. What are your pros and cons of Michelinie-era Spider-Man?
Pros and cons of this era. I love the big eyes. I love the spaghetti webbing. I love the ridiculousness when it comes to posing Spider-Man. His left foot over his head. I love Venom. 1994. I love Carnage. I love the stupid crossovers. What's the one thing I don't know if I have any cons for this era, man. You go from McFarlane to Eric Larson to Mark Bagley. I have no problem with this era at all. Like, I think this era is, but then again, it's my era, right? Like, it's my nostalgia for me. It's 84 to like 94. I love this stuff, dude.
Well, I always try to.
Okay, wait. I will say, I got it. The con, what? McFarlane writing adjectiveless Spider-Man.
Yeah, his writing is unparsable, but that's halfway through this. If you want to pop our faces back on the screen while we talk and while we get this super chat.
Okay. And let me get the super chat. What will Amazing Spider-Man Omnibus Volume 7 cover? Oh,
so we had that a few slides back. I think it's either just come out or is about to come out, but it's covering Amazing Spider-Man 206 through 223 and annual 14 and 15. Yeah, so it starts right before where the Roger Stern Omnibus picks up, and then Amazing Spider-Man Omnibus Volume 8 is pretty much more or less the same as the Amazing half of Roger Stern.
Yeah.
So I would agree with all of your pros. This is a fantastic era. I think one of the big pros for this is because it starts out with the lead up to Venom and then Venom's arrival. If you're somebody who knows Spider-Man through multimedia, if you know him from movies and video games, this is going to be the Spider-Man that feels like really familiar to you. In the same way that X-Men in the 90s feels familiar. If you start at this area of Spider-Man and you've grown up with Spider-Man, no matter when you grow up with Spider-Man, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, the present, this Spider-Man is going to feel pretty familiar unless you're looking for a teenage Spider-Man, because he's in a pretty mature, long-standing relationship with Mary Jane. In this era, if you're looking for like Spider-Man always coming home to Mary Jane, this is one of the periods that I think is the best period for that. Clearly, it features just every Spider-Man villain that you know and love turns up at some point here, drawn by Bagley, McFarlane, and Larson, which is a huge draw. I will say the only downside really is if you don't really like that kind of bombastic 90s style of art. I mean, everything is kind of getting super super exaggerated, super bendy, super extra details on every face and every wrinkle, and kind of like really getting into heavy rendering. And if that art just doesn't fly for you and you're looking for something a little bit cleaner lined, you probably want to start earlier or maybe wait until a little bit or later into the 2000s. But let's look at how this is collected, which I think also has a bearing on. Now there's so much. This might be missing something. Who could say? Let me try to give it to you in broad strokes before we look at the visual, because the visual is insane. So Amazing Spider-Man, we have pretty much everything except for a few annuals. And the reason why is because those annuals were all part of events. They were part of Evolutionary War. They were part of Atlantis Attacks. And at the time that Marvel was releasing these omnibuses, which was a long time ago that they first came out, Marvel's convention was to sometimes skip that stuff in the character omnibus because it was in the event omnibus. So if they ever got this far in some other format, whether it be a line-wide format or the Amazing Spider-Man Masterworks formats or whatever, it wouldn't skip those annuals. So you will be missing a few Amazing Spider-Man annuals. It skips a bunch of Spectacular. It's kind of got a spotty amount of Spectacular up to a point. Web at a point is collected, and then at a point it runs out. And we only really have less than half of the adjectiveless Spider-Man title, which starts in 1990. So if you look at the gap half of this on the bottom, there's plenty of gaps here. And some of them are not even on Marvel Unlimited because they've never been collected, not even just in Omnibus, but not at all. That's part of why the web omnibuses are such a big deal. And Omar maybe can speak to this, is we've never had web collections. At least Spectacular, we've had Masterworks. Yeah, but for true. Web of Spider-Man, there's no other game in town for most of Web of Spider-Man. So that's why those omnibuses were really a big deal. And Omar, I've always suspected that part of why they rushed through those two omnibuses because it was just the only way to get it out there.
Yeah, I think so. And that's why we didn't get a Spectacular Volume 2, because that stuff has been collected already. It's had Masterworks and it's had the Roger Stern omnibus. So I'm glad they kind of waited, but yeah. Now I hope they come out with it in maybe in later 2027. It'd be nice to have it all, you know.
Yeah, but that second Web omnibus, Web had only ever had two Essentials volumes, and both of the volumes are covered in the first omnibus. So the second omnibus was like a huge get. It was stuff that we'd never had. Whereas Spectacular had Essentials volumes that went all the way through 114, and it's got its Masterworks. So again, like I'm really trying to paint you a picture here. The Web omnibus was way more required because we really just didn't have Web. And when we get an omnibus of something that we've never had before, that means we also usually get it digitally on Marvel Unlimited, which is a huge deal if you're trying to fill in the gaps. So let's go look at this in visual. Take a deep breath, Omar, because this is crazy town. Let's go column by column. So, but for Amazing, this is really hard to visualize because they don't have sequential titles, and they sometimes like have one extra issue that goes a little farther or a little earlier. But once you look at it like this, for me, it will always make sense to me now. We have the David Michelinie and Todd McFarlane book that covers 1987 through 1989. For the most part, that collects 296 through 329. Then we have the Michelinie and Eric Larson book. It primarily collects 329 to 350. It has a bunch of other stuff in it, including several issues of Adjectiveless, but I'm not going to talk about that until we get to the column on the right. Then that leads directly into Michelinie and Bagley Volume 1, and then that leads directly into Michelinie and Bagley Volume 2, which also has Maximum Carnage in it. So if you had all four of the omnibuses in this column, you would only be missing annuals and a couple of OGNs in terms of like the main thread of Amazing Spider-Man. It's pretty good coverage. If they had to do it all over again, I think they would find a way to fit those annuals in. For Spectacular, if we go down column 2, we've got a big gap in Spectacular, which only a handful of issues are appearing anywhere else until we get to Spectacular by DeMatteis and Buscema, and that collects a very solid almost 50 issues of Spectacular and the original graphic novel of Amazing Spider-Man Soul of the Hunter. If we look at Web Volume 1 actually extends a couple of months into this era. Issue 34 was out in January 1987 or 88, I want to say. And then Web 2 gets us even further. It takes us all the way to 1990. But then after Web 2, we are missing pretty much the same amount of Web as we do have of Spectacular because there's no Web omnibus for this period. All we have are the parts that are part of crossovers, which are issues 101 through 103 as part of Maximum Carnage. Then finally on the right, we come to Adjectiveless Spider-Man, or Spider-Man 1990, launched by Todd McFarlane and also written by Todd McFarlane, for better or for worse. He writes issues 1 through 14 and 16. That's what are in the Todd McFarlane Omnibus. And Omar, here's something that I get wrong all of the time, that basically the next omnibus after the Todd McFarlane omnibus is the David Michelinie and Eric Larson Spider-Man omnibus, because that has issue 15, which McFarlane skips, 18, and then it also has 19, 20, and 21 through 23. So it's like another 6 or 7 months of that title before we totally run out of issues.
That's the Revenge of the Sinister Six story. I think.
Yes.
But they did not collect the, I think, like the Diablo backup stories in those. Not sure why, but yeah.
No, it doesn't. Yeah. So unfortunately, once again, this is a terrific era that you just can't do all of. You can't even do all of it. Even if you try to get trades, you do Marvel Unlimited, you will hit gaps. The positive is Amazing works pretty much on its own. And anytime Amazing directly crosses over into another title, you will find that those at least have been collected in the omnibuses or have been collected in the Epic collections, which means they're on Marvel Unlimited. So if you follow the mapping in these Amazing Spider-Man omnibuses, or if you follow the Amazing Spider-Man epics, you will get a very satisfying huge chunk of Spider-Man, but it is only 1/4 of the Spider-Man you could be getting.
So I think, why don't we just start over from scratch?
I think we need to
remap everything. No, I think they're fine. I think separating the lines is where it's at. That's the way to do it. I would love to
I think they should blue and gold this. It should be called Spider-Man
absolutely.
Blue and red and blue. And it should start from, they should do 3 more black costume books,
red,
and then
blue,
starting at the
black.
Red, blue, and black. And starting from the top of the slide, they should collect a cross in a volume every 8 months. That's what I think they should do.
I mean, they would. There's so much double dipping already with Michelinie-Era, because we had that Spider-Man versus Venom omnibus that already double dips with the Michelinie Bagley 1 and 2. But it's the only... No, Maximum Carnage is collected through there. You wouldn't... Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of double dips, which I didn't reflect here. What this is not is an accounting of where every single issue appears. Some of these appear in a Venom omnibus and in a Carnage epic collection. Like this is just about the way that sequentially makes the most sense.
I like what you said. I think I agree with you. I think we should redo these. Oh God, I said that. Somebody's gonna be like, "What an asshole!" Omar says I need to spend more money, but it would make it just so much easier, because the Clone Saga is beautifully mapped. I hate that story. Sorry, Bo, but at least the mapping on those books is it's just excellent.
Oh, I agree. And we'll see in the next slide. It's like idiot proof. It's so plain, so straightforward. I just think at this point, the thing that look, there was a point with Marvel omnibuses where Omar and I would say the same thing. Map around everything existing, assume everybody will have a full bookshelf. That's how we approached it for years. But we've all been in the omnibus game. It's been 20 years, y'all. And some of these omnibuses of like the Michelinie stuff are like approaching 15 years or more old at this point. I don't think it's a horrible thing if they try to be respectful of the lines between them to maybe start fresh, because if they're not going to start fresh, we're talking about keeping, let's count them, 1, 2, 3, 4 omnibuses in the left column, then another one, 5, Web 1 and Web 2, because Web 1 ends before the 6, and then McFarlane 7. We're talking about keeping 7 other omnibuses available and in print while they still try to fill in these gaps. I'll take the gaps being filled. I think everybody just wants to read these missing pieces of material in the yellow, and they could squeeze in those missing annuals along with Spectacular, and because it's the perfect... Oh no, actually they won't fit there. They can squeeze in those missing annuals with what's left of Web, and they'll fit in perfectly there because that's the year gap. But I don't know. I want to get it out there, and I want Spider-Man fans to be happy. And I'm just wondering, with the success of Triangle at DC and the success of the Batman Finest at DC, if actually a all-in-one might be the better way to go here.
Or maybe they could do what DC did with Green Lantern, right? Give us this era in compendiums.
I think that's perfect.
If you want everything, get the compendiums. Then they can omnibuys the compendiums years later. Then I get everything all over again like an idiot. Yeah. the Spider-Man versus Venom omnibus isn't really needed because it double dips heavily with Michelinie 1 and 2. It's got all the Maximum Carnage. The only thing it needs in there, it's like, what does it have? Like a couple of Venom stories that aren't crucial to Spider-Man. This is a Spider-Man video.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not part of the sequential list of books that's required to have all of Spider-Man. If we were doing this video for Venom, then it would be on that list. But it kind of just picks and chooses issues that are Venom related issues from Spider-Man, and none of those are unique from these.
Well,
all right, Omar, are we ready to move on to the Clone Saga?
Let me get this comment really quick.
Sure.
I mean, there was a time. It was actually X-Men that answered everything. Uncanny X-Men Volume 5 answered everything because we thought they were going to map around events or creator-centric books. Like, oh, people have been buying these since day one. Nope. Those volume numbers are going to continue. So, yeah, it's kind of crazy. All right. The Clone Saga.
Pros and cons of the Clone Saga.
Okay, tell me your pros. You said major cons. Why'd you start with cons?
Well, yeah, I'll give you my big pro of this. Other than the omnibuses are collected well, this is the first time the Spider-Man line truly acts as an all-in-one line in a consistent way. And I like comic books that are like that. I make no apologies. I want my line of comic books to act like a line of comic books. They're well coordinated. The stories make sense across all of them. They pretty much are emulating the Triangle line. And it tracks an evolving story throughout all of the titles. I mean, this is the biggest sustained drama we get. There's a second Spider-Man. Is our main Spider-Man leaving? Is he ever going to come back? Is the second Spider-Man any good at being Spider-Man? Like, it lasts for a while. This is, I mean, for better or for worse, this is kind of the death and return of Superman, of Spider-Man. And I think that's why there's sustaining interest in it.
I love the idea. I thought the idea was really cool of a clone, a potential clone coming back into the story going, wait, I could be the real Spider-Man and maybe you're the clone. Because remember, he threw away the piece of paper. He's like, I don't need to read it. I know I'm Peter Parker. Duh. That came and bit him in the ass. But I actually like the first part of this. I think it was excellent. I love the build-up. Amazing Spider-Man 400 is one of the best Spider-Man issues ever. I love that issue. Second half of this is the con.
Yeah.
Where everything is, I guess it was selling well. Marvel just kept putting out miniseries, ridiculous miniseries, and then continuation of Ben Reilly as Spider-Man. I think even Dan Jurgens was like, I can't do this. I wanted to write Spider-Man Peter Parker, not Ben Reilly Spider-Man. But it does start off really good.
It does. I really think, I think that people, it's just any of these periods that goes on for a really long time where it doesn't have incredible fan support the whole time. I do think people just get weary after a while. And also, I will say, I don't know that the art rotation ends this as strongly as it begins. It's coming off of quite a pedigree on Amazing, going from McFarlane to Larson to Bagley. And even though there's a lot of memorable Spider-Man artists in this period, I just don't know if the art is as attention grabbing as in the last period. I mean, even not on Amazing, we had Buscema on Spectacular. So, I mean, there are amazing artists all across the line. I just don't think that that's quite the same in the Clone Saga. But it's not horrible. Somebody just said Batmantha, my New Zealand friend, said there are far worse comics guys. Yeah, and there's far more worse comics in the 90s. And the thing is, again, it's all one big saga. It's readable, it's page turning, it's a soap opera. And I think for that reason, it works. You can skip right past the next slide because basically everything's collected. There's no gaps. I think somebody points out, Bo probably knows, there's like one issue that the omnibuses could have picked up, like some original graphic novel, but actually they could just put it in the next set of omnibuses. So if we look, this is the most perfectly organized of all of the Spider-Man's eras. Omar, if you go to the next slide,
I saw him at the airport and he remembered me because he signed my copy of Avengers The Crossing. He was like, you're one of the few people that got that signed. All right, here we go.
I mean, it could not be more organized. So I just did horizontal slices. The summary on the right has the complete summary of what's in the omnibus, and then under each of the columns, it just says what's in the omnibus of that particular title. So there's Clone Saga Volume 1 that has about a 8-ish month chunk of all the titles. Then there's Clone Saga 2. And it's important to point out these were not the only 4 Spider-Man titles in this period. There was also Spider-Man Unlimited, which was the quarterly title. And then there was also Spider-Man Team Up on top of that, which later in this period gets replaced with, I think, Marvel Team Up. So, but then there's Spectacular. Spectacular continues across this period. At the top of the third omnibus, which is Ben Reilly Volume 1, we get a series of break issues, just like all of the X-Men issues broke for Age of Apocalypse and all the DC issues broke for 0 Hour, 0 Month. This breaks for a bunch of titles that are all titled Scarlet Spider. So for 2 months, there's Amazing Scarlet Spider, there's Spectacular Scarlet Spider, Web of Scarlet Spider actually runs for 4 months, and that concludes Web of Spider-Man. When they come back from the Scarlet Spider break, it turns into Sensational Spider-Man, which launches in 1996. This goes to show how much more complex these slides are about to get as we start to have titles launching midway through the period. And Adjectiveless continues as well, also with just Scarlet Spider instead of Spider-Man, and then returning. So you can have this whole period. It used to be in a series of collections that, funny enough, had the word epic in the title, but they weren't epic collections. They were called like the Clone Saga Epic. Now the actual epic collections are very slowly making their way into that, but you can sometimes get a whole bundle of those epic paperbacks on eBay if you look closely, or you could just get these 4 omnibuses, which have been reprinted, I believe, Omar, once each, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's insane. They went out of print. For as much as people are like, oh, I hate this era, they went out of print. And they voted for these books to get reprinted. I think all of them are still in print as of this video. That is a lot of Spider-Man. But also, you got some new Warriors in there, so that gets a plus.
Well, and also it's just, again, there's nothing to worry about. I just, as somebody who when I get into a new character, and I went through this a couple times recently as people FOMO'd me into checking out characters I didn't have previously. This is how Crushing Crisis started, having to make a spreadsheet. What's missing? What are the gaps? I'm not sure. I feel a great level of comfort and satisfaction when somebody just tells me, just buy these 4 and shut up and start reading them. And there's not a lot of points in Spider-Man where you can say that. We'll hit it 2 more times in this, maybe 3 in this deck. But it's the first time that there's ever omnibuses that just say, sit down, be quiet, and start reading.
I like that.
All right, well, let's continue past this to the biggest gap.
Oh, yeah.
So this is
what we need.
Painful gap. I don't even think it's all collected in trades, actually, now that I'm thinking about it.
Epics.
No, I mean, Epics haven't even touched it.
Which is weird. We got a couple of trades, like the Slingers, but that's really about it.
So it's interesting, unlike other titles in this period, that had like a big 90s era and then an era after that. In all the other titles, Marvel has collected the era after that, whether that's in Epics or even before Epics. They did it for Captain America. They did it for everything else. It has not been the case for Spider-Man. There are gaps in not only the support titles, but in Amazing. Amazing, after the Clone Saga doesn't pick up again until 432. That means there's a gap of almost a year there. And then there's another gap in trade coverage between Identity Crisis and The Gathering of 5. So there are some Amazing Spider-Man issues which have never appeared in print, but we'll get into that in the mapping. That's the first con of this era, is there's no clean way to read it. You would have to buy singles if you want to read all of this, even of Amazing, which is crazy to say about Spider-Man. There's very few periods of Batman after Crisis where there's no trade coverage of an issue ever of the main Batman title.
You could not have said that 5 years ago.
True.
Now you can say it.
It wasn't perfectly collected, but the issues were out there somewhere, many of them.
I mean, Cape Crusader and Dark Knight had just, they were halfway through. But yeah,
that's true.
Crazy to think about that.
But
What do
the
we got here?
positive I'll say for this, because I think that's the big con for this. It's like, it's almost like a no man's land. And I will say this because Omar and I have seen this hundreds of times over the decade plus that we've both been doing this, is when something's really under collected, the positive opinions about it are not that strong because nobody's had a chance to react to it. So to either people, it's this kind of classic white space on the map where it says there be dragons because they just don't know, or they have a negative opinion of it because the negative opinion is the one that kind of pokes through and people are like, well, there's a reason it's not collected. Or they even assume that because it's not collected, it must suck. So that's the big con for this, which is that because it is not well collected and because you'd have to track down singles, it's just not widely known. But there's actually a lot of good stories in this. I think this kind of has like a getting the band back together feeling where like Spidey kind of got fun again. They focused on Peter Parker. They had to me, a hallmark of Spider-Man are kind of like big stories that kind of get tickled a couple of stories earlier, and then the thread is in the next one, and then it pays off. Like Spider-Man's really good at that because he's just one character. It's not a whole team of X-Men. It's not, like a whole family of Bat people. It's really just Spider-Man. And I think this era actually was pretty good at that if you can track it down. Omar, anything from you, pros and cons?
I thought it was an okay era. I liked the slingers. I liked Luke Ross on where you chose a Luke Ross cover here. It's really weird. I was just talking to Dom about this when we were in San Diego, how much Luke Ross has changed. Just like Steve.
Oh, I love him. I love him then and I love him now.
Yeah, it's so different. Like this is back when he was doing his Joe Mad style, and now it's a lot more like Steve Epting style. So different. Yeah, this is ups and downs again, and then they decided to do a relaunch, which is very, very weird for Marvel because this ends with the volume 1, and yeah, I actually liked Identity Crisis. That stuff was awesome. It's kind of like the reign of Superman.
I will say though, this is, out of every single era we'll do on the show, this is the one that you should not start with. Not only because it's not available, but I mean, I guess there's a certain something to the way it's rolling off of Clone Saga and it has a little bit of renewed energy. But I can't imagine telling somebody, oh yeah, you're going to love Spider-Man if you start here. Omar, are you muted or are you just deep in thought?
I was just laughing at what she wrote. Beat the shit out of the chameleon. Spider Hunt was incredible, but goblins at the gate. That arc, Hobgoblin versus Green Goblin. I guess it was the previous era that had the Hobgoblin Lives, the storyline by. That stuff hasn't been collected in omnibus format, and we really needed to. I own every issue of Peter Parker Spider-Man. Is that a series you think would get an omnibus? I never hear.
Well, that's a little bit after this. So let's look at what's in this. And then I want to come back to this super chat from It Could Be Dust, because I do think it could get an omnibus, and there's a couple different ways it could go. So let's see what this actually contains now that we've looked at the beautiful visual. None of it is an omnibus, so that makes it really easy to talk about. We're talking about more of Amazing Spider-Man, more of Spectacular Spider-Man, more of Adjectiveless Spider-Man, more of Sensational Spider-Man, more of Spider-Man Unlimited, the final 2 issues of Spider-Man Team Up, Spider-Man Hobgoblin Lives that Omar just mentioned, Marvel Team Up, which starts after Spider-Man Team Up ends, and Peter Parker, Spider-Man, and Elektra Annual 1998, even though in 1998 there was actually no title that actually had Peter Parker in the title. It was just a standalone annual. So pretty easy to talk about what's an omnibus or not, because the answer is none. Omar, if we go to the next slide after this, we'll see that it's a big old none. And I have to give a shout out to our good friend and near mint condition stalwart Next Imaginaut, who, or no, not a Next Imaginaut, sorry, slipping his name, DBZ All-Star, who mapped this so perfectly, and all of this comes from his brain over the past 2 years of the Tiger Eyes poll. So we've chunked it a little differently here than it is on the Tiger Eyes poll. First, there's kind of just Clone Saga Aftermath that doesn't really have a specific crossover or storyline. Then there's the Spider Hunt and Identity Crisis storylines, because they all kind of cross over a bit, so I did them as their own slice. Then there's a few issues after that before the Gathering of the Five, and then between the Gathering Five and the last chapter, but that's kind of the last chunk there. So there's 3 different kind of starting points in here. None of it is an omnibus, and as we've mentioned, some of it is a complete gap. Omar may be muted again. I'm not doing that.
I got it. The next chapter. So this is when Spider-Man gets a relaunch. What are the pros here? I love when Crisis asked me that.
Oh, you're asking me? I have to go first?
Oh God, this is a rough era of Spider-Man. I actually, oh no, I can't. Like, well, John Byrne is back. If you're a big fan of Byrne, right? This is Byrne's new style. This is his next men style, as I like to call it. Howard Mackie and John Byrne are writing. John Romita Jr. is drawing, with John Byrne also drawing. We had it collected in Omnibus and just poorly mapped.
Sorta.
I don't. It was a Spider-Man comic that was coming out. Lots of cons. Lots of cons.
I'll throw in a pro. It's nice to have a definitive fresh start from a number one. It's nice to have an era that like starts with new ideas where it's a jumping on point. Spider-Man really hadn't done a lot of that. Well, look, come on, I'm trying.
Okay, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
And it was pretty well coordinated, and that is not represented in the terribly mapped omnibus that we already have, because they didn't collect one half of what we were talking about, which is what that super chat was talking about. If I can get back up to it, it was missing the Peter Parker half. So when this got collected in the John Byrne omnibus, it has all of the John Byrne Amazing Spider-Man title, and then it doesn't have the Peter Parker half, but the two titles were very well coordinated. So it's like you're kind of only, and it's, since it's down to just two titles, it's not like reading one of four, it's reading one of two. So it's like reading Uncanny X-Men without X-Men. I think that's weird. So I think we do need an omnibus. My hope, though, is that they would collect it not with a creator name, and they would just collect the entire era. But Omar, let's see explicitly what this includes, since we've both given somewhat negative opinions. So as we both mentioned, by John Byrne, and we'll see the where in the next slide, we have Spider-Man Chapter 1, 0 through 12, and we have Amazing Spider-Man 1999, 1 through 18. But that leaves us with a lot of gaps before the beginning of the next period, which is JMS. We have the back half of Amazing Spider-Man and all three of its annuals. We have all of Peter Parker Spider-Man, which is what that super chat front was about. And also we have Web Spinners. Web Spinners started out as a title that was telling retcon stories set earlier in Spider-Man, but around issue 8 or 9, it starts telling present day stories. That hasn't been collected in Omnibus either. If you do some quick back of napkin math, we're basically talking about 32 issues of both of the main titles and then 18 issues of Web Spinners. So that's a total of 72 issues. That is a perfect pair of omnibuses. Omar, let's look at what that looks like visually.
Okie dokie. Here we go.
And I just want to highlight yet another incredibly, incredibly intelligent comment from It Could Be Gut Dust, who I'm learning knows their Spider-Man real darn well. I have both titles in single issues. They go back to back like two-parters. They need to be mapped together. And so you can see there's only one blue box on this slide, which is that Spider-Man by John Byrne at the top of the left-hand column, and everything else is in yellow. So the next box down on the left column, that's just kind of that middle stuff that probably could have gone in the Byrne omnibus if it was by Byrne, but it was not. So it was not, which is annual 99 and the half issue. And then there's the rest of that stuff that's post-Byrne. Then we see how that compares to the release windows of the other titles. So the first 18 issues of Peter Parker Spider-Man from 1999 and its first annual, and then the remaining issues of that, and then all of the 18 issues of Web Spinners. Web Spinners is not really replaced after those 18 issues. It kind of ends when Byrne leaves Amazing. But there is another retcon series that happens after that. That's just a mini series called Spider-Man Death and Destiny. So altogether, that gets us to roughly 75 issues, a great pair of omnibuses. There are a number of other mini series here. We don't track those on all of the slides in this deck, but since I had an extra column in this one, we threw them in. Spider-Man Revenge of the Goblin, Spider-Man the Mysterio Manifesto, Spider-Marrow #1, Spider-Man Lifeline 1 through 3, Spider-Man vs. Punisher 1, Daredevil Spider-Man 1 through 4, and Year in Review Spider-Man, also known as Peter and Mary Jane's Spider-Man Scrapbook. But even if we added all of those issues, that's 3, 6, 7, 10, 11, 15, only 16 more. That leaves us at a 91 issues for this period, give or take one or two. Still very doable in two omnibuses.
Man, you're kind of pushing it. I would put it in one big fat omnibus and hope to God people buy it.
Well, 90, it's, even if you leave out everything in that fourth column, you'd have 75 issues. However, if you left out Web Spinners, then we're at like 68 8 issues.
You can't leave out web spinners. That has a big
Well,
collection.
then you can't have one omnibus, Omar. Which way do you want it?
I want a $200 omnibus that I hope to God people buy, because when they read the first part, they're gonna be like, "I'm not buying volume 2." Did you see the way they brought Aunt May back? This is stupid.
I mean, this is the danger of releasing this in omnibus, is that that first omnibus is not going to attract a lot of people to buy a second one. I almost would release the second one first, because the second one actually has better material in it, especially in Peter Parker Spider-Man. I think that's when Paul Jenkins takes over in the period of the second half of the side. So I would just call that one, like, I don't know, Road to JMS or something, because that one's better. And then eventually I'd let the first half of it limp across the finish line.
Yeah. We're not reviewing the material, but we're just being honest. It's awful.
Well,
God have mercy on your soul if this is the next era you're reading Batman.
And again, we're not here to yuck anybody's yum. We're not here to tell you if you like this era that sucks. I mean, you just heard us say there's good issues of Peter Parker Spider-Man. I think that's the standout here. But we just want you to be informed. The point of this is you should be able to come away from this and go, wow, in 2 hours or more, Omar and Peter told me everything there was ever to know about the bibliography of Spider-Man. That's the journey you're on with us right now. You're going to learn about every major Spider-Man series that ever existed, including the boring ones.
Fact.
So web spinners, again, Omar, I've only ever looked in web spinners for the purposes of making guides. Are you somebody that has read web spinners?
The actual web spinner comics? Yeah, so I had every bit of Spider-Man. By the way, you could find them in the quarter boxes. They were, I think for the most part, they were like J.M. DeMatteis, Howard Macchiano wrote some, but they were all like throwback series. I want to say like John Romita Jr. even drew some of those too.
Yeah, the first 7 or 8 issues all fit into past Spider-Man continuity. So it's kind of like an extra anthology book, because Spider-Man used to support, just in the previous era had supported, I think we're up to 5 books a month with the team up title. So 2 books, even with an increased shipping pace, they still felt like they were not getting everything out of the Spider-Man market. But look at the years of this, 1999 through 2001, this crosses over into where Ultimate Spider-Man starts coming out. So one of those traditional room for Spider-Man books on the Marvel slate went to Ultimate Spider-Man when it launched, which was during this period.
I think that is where Paul Jenkins and Sean Phillips actually ended up after their Hellblazer run.
Which is crazy to think about. Hellblazer to the Spider-Man B title.
Maybe they were trying to make it an A title. Actually, I don't think I had any problems with it. I think for the most part, it was a fun minis, or I guess maxi series, right? All right, what is the next era, my friend?
Well, now we get into one that is very well covered and that people know very well, including you. So why don't you start out with the pros of starting with and reading the J.M. Straczynski era of Spider-Man?
So JMS had the task of bringing Spider-Man home. And it wasn't an easy task, because people had lost faith in Spider-Man. It's really difficult for them to carry so many titles. They started canceling titles. They didn't know what to do with the character. The pros is that this is one of the best jumping on points for Spider-Man, because it starts over with a new mythos. His relationship with Mary Jane is kind of, you're not sure whether they're going to work it out or not. He has a new job. He becomes a teacher. To me, coming home is the perfect jumping on point. Like, you can't read Silver Age material. You like Modern Age. This is it. This is the one. That is like wonderful artwork by John Romita Jr. and Scott Hanna on inks. Mike Deodato Jr. later on. The cons. Since passing one more day. Those are the cons. I mean,
that's your only con?
For me, I love this run. I think it was excellent. Oh, don't you? What are you doing?
I brought pros. I brought some pros. I'll bring pros.
What pros you got?
All right, here's my 3 big pros. Pro number 1. as you said, this is probably the best sustained period of Spider-Man being an adult in a sustainable relationship with Mary Jane. Like, this is it. I think if you want to read Spider-Man as an adult with Mary Jane, you either read the Michelinie-Era or you read this era. He's with her in the two eras that we just went through in between, Clone Saga, Post-Clone, and Next Chapter, but they're just not as good for me as like adult Spider-Man in a stable relationship that has its ups and downs. So does any partnership. But like, I think if you like Spider and MJ, that's a good reason to read this. Pro number 2, look at that year range. This is a long period of time where Spider-Man is mostly just one title and it is being steered by one person with one creative vision. So that is very unique. Of course, after this, that starts getting more and more common. After this, Marvel actually likes to do Spider-Man in 5-year sprints. But this was like the first time that that was true, really. I mean, I guess Michelinie, but the collapse down to one main title, which brings this to the third pro of this is JMS has some big ideas for Spider-Man. Spider-Man gets a little supernatural. There's spider totems. At the beginning of the stream, I got Omar to agree with me that Spider-Man is never all that different. Like, Spider-Man is always Spider-Man compared to how Batman or Superman or X-Men have very different periods. However, if you're looking for the most different kinds of ideas of what to do with Spider-Man in stories, that might be this period in addition to Superior. So those are all pros. See, I'm being fair and balanced, right?
Yeah, here it comes.
I hate those big ideas. I don't want a spider totem. I don't want Spider-Man to be the chosen one. I'm not interested in that. You can go creepy and sci-fi with him, but I don't want him to be some fantastical hero with a connection to the gods. That's not Spider-Man to me. So for me, that's not Spider-Man. And I just don't like all of the artists that are in the rotation in this era. I don't think I'm being cruel and unusual there. There are two things about it, which happen to be the main two things I like in a comic book, the story and the art, that just don't work for me. I love that you're laughing at me so much that you have to mute because that's how hard you're laughing at me.
I think I squeaked. I hate the two things that make comic books. I love John Romita Jr.'s art during this time. Scott Hanna cleaned him up so much. Oh, it was awesome, dude. But I like big stories. I like the idea of a spider tome. Sure, it's not retconning anything. It's not hurting anything of the stories of the past. It's actually adding some new mythos. I kind of like that. I love moments with him and MJ. Some of the best marriage moments comes out of this run.
That I agree with wholeheartedly.
That Sin's Past in one more day. Those were just rough. Not even the idea of Sin's Past, the original idea before editorial came in. I'm like, no. There's some things you just leave alone. What are we doing here?
But in its defense, since I apparently here disagree with everything you say, in its defense, at least it's a big swing. Like, I think we take for granted that we have strong opinions about this run because JMS just took big swings, and some of them were big swings that were dictated by editorial, but like that differentiates it from like Next Chapter, which really didn't have any big swings in it at all. So like, yeah, it's got some stuff that people like that are big swings, like Moreland, but then it has stuff that were big swings that we all cringe at later. But like, you got to try something to have a success or a failure, and I think this part tries something. I think this is probably for a modern reader who doesn't necessarily have patience for all of the excesses of the 90s or the Bronze Age or the Silver Age. I do think this is probably where you start.
Yeah. There we go. That's where it's at. So how is this mapped?
Well, the great thing is, over the past couple of years, we've gotten these absolutely brilliant JMS omnibuses. You would be... Yeah, 2. And you would be, or is it 3? No, it's 2. You would be forgiven if you thought that's all there was. But no, Peter Parker Spider-Man continues, and then it turns into Spectacular. Marvel Knight Spider-Man talks and starts, and then it turns into Sensational, and then there's Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. So this is another 4 title period, even though it looks like there's more than 4 because they kind of trade off. You'll be able to see it in the next slide. And of those titles, only the stuff that is absolutely critical to JMS were in his omnibuses. So there's a lot of gaps and there's a lot more Spider-Man to collect. But I guess my point is that the JMS part of this is so all-encompassing and like so just constantly rolling forward that you can just read that and be completely unaware of the other titles, and it will go just fine for you. So let's take a look at it visually. I think it'll make more sense visually.
Here we go.
Oh, okay. So this is the most complicated one so far. Far left, we have All of Amazing. It's been in J. Michael Straczynski. A little bit of a note on this. We were coming off of Amazing Spider-Man 1999. That's what the title is through number 58. Then it goes to legacy numbering. It's one of the first Marvel comics that switches back to legacy numbering. This was before 2004 with issue 500. You will see that Marvel generally holds the convention that they will continue calling that Spider-Man 1999. Not always, though. Sometimes they will refer to it as Spider-Man 1963, so it picks it as the numbers of 1963. My personal connection or convention is anytime that title legacy numbers, I give it the year of its original volume number. So I call that Spider-Man 1963. So then JMS Volume 2 has the next 31 issues of Amazing Spider-Man in that legacy numbering, but it also picks up a handful of issues from the other titles because they were intersecting with this one for part of its big storylines. But then let's go across the other columns. So we start out still having Peter Parker Spider-Man 1998 or 9, which we had just talked about on the last slide, that was being written by Paul Jenkins. Paul Jenkins continues to write it for another 20 issues into this period. Paul Jenkins also writes Daredevil Spider-Man and also Century Spider-Man. So if that ever got collected together, it would probably include those. And then Paul Jenkins continues and relaunches into Spectacular Spider-Man, which he writes for another 27 issues. So if you like Paul Jenkins, if you like him on Sentry, if you like Paul Jenkins in Humans, if you like his Hellblazer, there's a 5-year period that you could be reading Paul Jenkins Spider-Man instead of JMS Spider-Man, or in addition to JMS Spider-Man. Then, so all the way until 2003, we had those two titles, and skipping over the third column all the way to the far right, we got Spider-Man's Tangled Web, which has had an omnibus, which collects it all together. It was not all Spider-Man focused stories. Sometimes it was stories focused on other Spider-Man characters. That's why it was a Tangled Web. Then we have the third column. In 2003, we get Marvel Knights Spider-Man. So this was Marvel. The Marvel Knights brand had been around for several years at this point. It was not necessarily all mature readers, but it was slightly darker, slightly more sophisticated takes on their heroes. And they gave one to Spider-Man that was fully in continuity, and it runs as the third title alongside these other titles. A small portion of that, 4 issues, are in JMS Volume 2. Then Marvel Knights retitles without relaunching to Sensational Spider-Man and runs for another 18 issues and an annual, actually 19 issues, but 18 issues and an annual, which are not an omnibus. However, the final issue of that is in the JMS book because it is part of One More Day. Then also in 2004, we launched a 4th title, Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. Again, a couple of issues of Friendly Neighborhood are in that JMS book, issues 1 through 4 and 24. So the first arc and the final issue, but we have the whole middle swath of that, which has not been an omnibus. Of course, we're in the trades era now, so it has been collected, but not an omnibus, and that is by Peter David. So actually, you would be forgiven thinking this period is really well collected because of those 2 massive, very fun to read JMS omnibuses, but actually this period is not even halfway collected in omnibus.
I thought they had something going with that Best of Spider-Man collection. Do you remember those hardcovers?
I do. They were like early Marvel hardcovers.
Yeah, deluxe editions, and they put Amazing Spider-Man in there and Peter Parker Spider-Man in there. And that's the only way some of those stories were collected. I think the Death in the Family is collected in those too. Not the Batman one, but the Spider-Man one.
Yeah, I mean, they were at the time, they were really cool collections because they were doing that kind of anthology thing that wasn't really common for anybody to be doing. But this period is ripe for reprinting, and I don't think there's any reason to remap those JMS books. I mean, they're lovely books as they are. I think there's probably a Jenkins omnibus to answer a question from 20 minutes ago at this point. Yeah, there's obviously a Jenkins omnibus, and then I think there's like a Knights Sensational Friendly omnibus too, honestly.
The other does come from this era. You are correct. It was the crossover between the titles and the new title, Friendly Neighborhood, with Peter David.
Yeah.
Rest in peace. Oh my gosh. Brand new. What a coincidence. Did you know that there is a movie?
A movie called Brand New Day?
Yeah.
That's some revolutionary cross-marketing.
Now I'm so glad you kept that there. Now on sale 3 times a month. This is a cover by Steve McNiven, 2007, 2010. This is the think tank, the brain trust of Spider-Man writers.
For me, this is my favorite. If we're talking wholesale era, no few cons, many pros. This is my favorite era of Spider-Man.
Really?
I think the brain trust was very, very good at writing Spider-Man. I think the key, and it's funny you said that, our brains do operate alike. I tried not to get a lot of text on the slides, but I left in this image with now on sale 3 times a month to emphasize it was all about this title. Marvel went all in on, we're just going to put out a lot of Amazing Spider-Man. All of the stories will be there, and we'll have different writers rotate it through it. It means just a lot of stories got told very quickly. The plot moves along at a quick clip, and the art rotation on this was phenomenal. Honestly, I like it more and more as we approach Grim Hunt. And then I just think that last part with Gauntlet and Grim Hunt is so good. I think people are asking, what should I read if I see the new movie or I'm getting ready for the new movie? It kind of feels like the new movie is kind of taking a little bit of the other, maybe from, or for like some of the weirdness of that Straczynski stuff, but it's also playing some of the themes of this era too, where we don't have like a permanent MJ relationship. I love this. I have very little negative to say about this, and the negatives will have to come from you, Omar.
I have not always loved this. I actually started out hating this when it was coming out because I hated One More Day. I hated what they did to, like, I hated what they did to Peter. I thought, Marvel isn't DC Comics. Why do we need to do this? When I started getting the trade paperbacks or standard size hardcovers, because I'm an idiot and a completist, I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll read it again. Then it became okay. And then when the Omnibus came out, I think enough time had passed. I mean, if you look at this is 2007, right? Almost 2 decades have happened since One More Day, and people won't stop bitching about it. It's kind of crazy.
Like, even me, who's the chief of bitching about things forever and holding
I'm
a
bitching
grudge
about it, and I realized
I'm tired.
20 years, a lifetime has happened in between that. Like, so this to me was very reminiscent of that era of Spider-Man from what you called, what was after the Silver Age?
The Bronze Age?
Is that what we called it? Okay. Yeah, very reminiscent of the Bronze Age. It was just fun. It was Peter single, like he was a little bit younger, down on the Parker luck again. And the artists were great. I'm not going to say each writer was good, but I mean, you had people like, let's see, Zeb Wells, Mark Guggenheim, Bob Gell writing Back to the Future, coming in to write Spider-Man. That's crazy. Mark Waid, Dan Slott, and who else was the other big writer on this? There were 5 writers. I'm sure it'll come to me.
And the thing was, they worked well together. Like, the handoffs were fun. It didn't feel like 5 people playing tug of war. It felt like they all were like, all right, you're like tag team wrestling. Like, you're in, suplex this, and then tag me in, and I'm going to do an elbow drop. Like, it really felt like this. It just kept rolling. And that's when I love comic books. I love collaborative, fast-paced, plot moving, and it allowed them to thread in plot threads for each other. In who?
Christos Gage. That was the other.
Oh, yeah. And I love Christos Gage writing Spider-Man. A lot of these people would come back later because they were so good at writing at the time. Very few of them achieved the glory, though, that they were achieving here. I mean, Zeb Wells here is a totally different Zeb Wells to the one that we'll meet later. So, yeah, let's take a look at what this includes. Because, again, because it was shipping 3 times a month, it was really mostly just this one title. So if we look at the next slide, this is Amazing Spider-Man, and it goes on basically 100 issues. There's 2 side titles, and they are brief. Amazing Spider-Man Family, which, as it says right on the tin, it's not primarily about him, it's about other spider people, and so only a couple stories of that have been in Omnibus. Then there's Web of Spider-Man, which I think mostly focused on his villains, if memory serves. Only a couple stories from that have been in Omnibus. And then there was also a Spider-Man and Doctor Strange miniseries called Spider-Man Fever, so they could put out a tidy little mini Omnibus of that stuff, but honestly, this is covered in the 3, and then there are so many miniseries. There's like basically a whole extra series just of miniseries, and they're all in the Brand New Day omnibuses.
I was like 6 when this came out. Ouch. I have core childhood memory of being taken to my local comic book store and seeing it on the racks, then buying a Batman toy instead. Yes.
Well, let's look at the omnibus map here
Actually,
because
there are two. Okay, I will say there are two low points for me, and it's not Bob Gale. One of them is Jackpot, and the other one is
ugh,
Menace.
ugh.
Those are the two low points of this era for me.
All right, so we have 3 brand new day omnibuses that are just about everything. Omar, the one question that we just had in chat is, did American Sun end up in one of these omnibuses? I think it did not.
Nope, it is the only miniseries that was not. I did ask. I think it belonged in volume 2, but they didn't add it.
So as I said at the top, we don't have every miniseries in here, but I do think that's worth noting out loud that it doesn't have American Sun. But look at all those miniseries. Oh, sorry, I don't know if that was me. But this is, so the first one collects less than 20 issues, but then it has Secret Invasion. It has the President's Day issue. It has Fear Itself, which is a one-shot. It has Spider-Man Extra. It has Spider-Man Swing Shift. Then the second one, again, is only about like 25-ish issues. But then look at all those other things it has. It has another Spider-Man Extra story. It has, and then you had a lot of digital. These were like early digital comics in 2008 and 2009. A Chemical Romance, The Root of All Annoyance. And then it has a Dark Reign miniseries for Mr. Negative. It has the Anti-Venom series. It has the Jackpot miniseries. Then we get to Brand New Day 3, and Brand New Day 3 again has some miniseries to get through. It has a Black Cat miniseries. It has the Many Loves of Amazing Spider-Man one-shot. So there's a lot of extra stuff other than just those 100 issues. And as we said, in terms of main Spider-Man titles, it's only Family, Web, and Fever that really don't get included. And as commenters very intelligently pointed out, the American Sun miniseries.
Yeah, I think that's it. I completely blocked out Menace. Poor Spider-Man can't get a major female villain.
I know.
I like Hallow's Eve. She's cool. She's got an awesome power. I see your face, but no one else can see it, Peter.
I mean, I wish I could keep talking about this because I truly find this period delightful. I think there's a, it's.
No, I'm sure they're with you. I think it gets overhated because they loop it in with One More Day, and I understand. I was the same way, but distancing yourself from a story that you hate really does wonders for you. It was excellent.
Well, and also I don't think we can hold a whole 100 issues of Spider-Man to account to it, the decision that directly preceded it. Like, it's not like all 100 of these issues is about that story. It's like blaming your like new neighbors who are really cool and sweet for moving into a house because you really liked your old neighbors. Like, they didn't kick them out of the house. Your old neighbors sold it. So like, like this is the new team is not at fault for what happened right before them. And if you can let go of that and say, okay, well, this is modern Spidey without MJ, it's really, really good storytelling for the most part. I don't think the lowest of the lows here is enough to drive me away from the many positives of this run.
I agree.
All right, but then something just as revolutionary as this brain trust happens, they give Spider-Man to one person who was not, I wouldn't say he was the most famous at this point. He had not really, he had written She-Hulk, he had written some Human Torch and Thing comics, but Dan Slott was not, this was not a JMS level person, a Michelinie level person, a John Byrne level person coming on to write Spider-Man. He was just looked at positively as one of the members of the Brain Trust who people seemed to like the most. That's how I remember it from that time.
Yeah, JMS came from television.
Babylon 5, baby.
Yeah, whereas Dan Slott was Dan Slott. He'd written some stuff. He was in editorial. He'd been around for a while, but you're right. Never really had that run that, like, means that you can take over a big flagship title like this. Yeah, this also has Humberto Ramos on artwork, and he tells story. I'm curious what you think like of this era. So why don't you start with the pros?
Pros. I think it has all of the same energy of that past era, but all consolidated under one writer. And I think that allows Slott to do bigger things. And you have to think this is just part one of Dan Slott. Dan Slott writes Spider-Man for 8 years. So he is architecting big plot threads that he's continuing to pluck and snap and restring for 8 years of this run. And this is just the beginning of it. So I think he's able to accomplish a lot more. And this does frequently multiple ship per month. So he's getting a lot of issues and he's also just one writer. So I think the kind of ability to tell bigger stories with a bigger scope for Spider-Man is one of the pluses of this run. You know, the Ends of the Earth story leading into Superior Spider-Man, later in this run doing Spider-Verse. I think a lot of people like this part of the run maybe the best because it leads into Superior Spider-Man. I actually like this part of the run the least because I'm just not a huge Humberto Ramos fan, and I don't really like Spider Island, which is half of the first omnibus here, but it's not bad. It's just not my fave. I'm struggling to think of what's bad about this. I think Slott's humor can trend a little caustic sometimes. I don't think he has any particularly good female supporting character, even when Spider-Man starts like kind of dating that one cop. He doesn't, she's not treated very well by the writing. But it's a very fun, easy to read Spider-Man run. And you're muted because you must have been talking shit about me behind.
I was not talking
yourself.
I don't
That
talk behind your
they
back.
don't know anything. Their hair's not even that good.
I actually really like this era. I both like Humberto Ramos. I think he's a perfect fit for Spider-Man. It's weird. It's different. It definitely has that anime flair. I like a lot of the things that Dan Slott brought. I actually agree with you. I don't like Spider Island. I think it's a little too much. But I did like Ends of the Earth. I thought that was excellent. I think his magnum opus is still Superior Spider-Man. So that's where this will lead into. But yeah, there were some big things in here that I enjoyed about it. I love the different outfits too. You throw Spider-Man in a new costume, man, it's like what's it called? Like a skin for a video game. I'm a sucker for stupid stuff like that.
And I will say that the thing that to me is the pro about this is that Dan Slott in this period, it really feels like he took the energy from the Gauntlet, which is one of my favorite parts of that previous period. And he really said to himself, okay, if I'm going to bring back the Lizard, if I'm going to bring back Doc Ock, I want to do the biggest story with them. It really feels like he's like looking at each villain and he's like, if I'm going to do a story with that villain, how do I push it the farthest? And I think that that's actually a hallmark of Dan Slott's whole run. I wouldn't say it's a villain focused run, but I will say whenever he uses a villain, he doesn't really use them as like a bit player. He's like, let me try to give this villain like a really big definitive story. And I like that because I think Spider-Man's villains are really iconic. And when they just come and go like a revolving door, I get bored really easily. I want to see them do something big, interesting. I want to see them evolve. You know, you can't have the same Silver Age villains taking the same Silver Age mentality of fighting Spider-Man when you have a modern Spider-Man.
So the question is, how many big time Omnis will we get? Well,
let's take a look at era. Great minds thinking alike here. So Omar just announced, and I was legitimately delighted. I already have this all in paperback. I do not have any aspirations to own any oversized Spider-Man, but this first. Well, even if it wasn't for that, Spider-Man is just not one of my oversized characters. There's got to be limits. I am officially out of shelf space at this time, and there are more books headed to my house right now, so I don't know what I'm going to do. So, when I talked about it on my channel, I had a FOMO haul, and there's 2 more parts of that haul coming. So, we have about half of this initial part of it in Omnibus already. We have about 25 issues leading up to Spider Island. We have the whole Spider-Man Island event is going to be in the big time part 1 Omnibus, which I know not everybody loves it, including neither Omar nor I, but that is the right way to map it, and we do all agree about that. And then there was also Spider-Men, which is actually not collected with the main Spider-Man Omnibus line to this point, although we'll find out in the next one. It's actually collected so far with the Miles line, because it teams up Miles and Peter, and it's written by Bendis. That means we still have what you look down there could be a perfect omnibus sized big time volume 2. We've got about another 25 issues of Amazing and then potentially 15 issues of Avenging, which kind of looks just like the size of the first half. So maybe only one more. Let's go look at the visual.
Here we go.
So for Amazing, we have the newly announced big time omnibus, which had all of that small text there. That's all Spider Island stuff. Just trust me, it has everything. We don't need to talk about all of it. Then we have that period that's not an omnibus. And then the Superior Spider-Man omnibus actually starts with the last couple of, actually 3 issues of Amazing Spider-Man. And it has to, because that's what launches Superior Spider-Man. So I don't know that there would be any utility to recollecting that in big time, since Superior Spider-Man continues directly by this, and it's also by Dan Slott. There were a few miniseries in this era that would have fit into that first big time omnibus, but it was already pretty big. One of them is Spider-Man versus Vampires, which is a one-shot that was part of X-Men Curse of the Mutants. And then, sorry, that's a typo. It's not 7 through 19, it's 7 through 9. Spider-Man has an arc in that adjectiveless X-Men 2010 period. So they could be things that could still be maybe snuck into the last one or the next big time omnibus, if there is ever such a thing. And then also, we have Spider-Men, which I actually would like to see collected alongside the Dan Slott stuff. Since we're not calling this Big Time by Dan Slott an omnibus, you'll note the omnibus title is just Big Time Omnibus. So we could put non-Dan Slott stuff in there. I would like to see Spider-Man included. And then they launch Avenging Spider-Man in 2011, so right after Spider Island. And that's basically a Spider-Man team-up title. Every issue or every arc is him doing something with other characters. And so it's actually a really fun read, and it coordinates really well with Dan Slott's run. And again, much like Amazing, I think there's a couple of issues of Avenging that make it into the Superior Omnibus as well. Also, he is in 3 issues of Savage Wolverine 2013. Even though that comes out after this period, it was originally written as an arc of Avenging, and they just couldn't fit it in at the time before Avenging had to move on to Superior. So that would make sense to collect here too. So actually, now that we finally have a big time Volume 1 Omnibus, there's not much left, and it could all be done in one. And my fingers crossed hope for us all is that includes Avenging.
Wow. You covered everything. I don't think this is one of the slides that I didn't get a chance to look at. But I think you nailed it. Outside of, the little X-Men thing, but yeah.
Typos come for us all, Omar.
I typo every day, my friend.
Yeah.
No, this is great. This is great.
And the other great thing about this is we're deep into the trade era now. So if you wanted to start here, great time to start. I mean, you could very easily start with Brand New Day. You could very easily start with Big Time. I would just say start with Brand New Day, because there's 100 issues. Like, dig in, have fun, go wild, be Scrooge McDuck, diving into the coins, and the coins are X-Men comic books. But like, if you want to start here, you could also start here. And because this is from the trade era and it's all been collected, every single thing on the slide is on Marvel Unlimited. Every single thing on the slide has been in trade paperback, and many of the things on the slide have been recollected at least into a second trade paperback. So you are not going to lack for issues. This is a great place to dive in and start reading. You'd have 8 years of Dan Slott, at least a couple of weeks of reading.
That's a lot of Dan Slott. You gotta like Dan Slott.
And I do. I actually, even though I do try not to say his name 3 times because he does appear like Beetlejuice, I do have an appreciation for him that some people lack. All right, so let's continue to the next period of Dan Slott. Dan Slott part 2 of 3.
Oh, that would be fun. All right, here we go.
It's all coming, y'all. Y'all demanded it. You asked for Spider-Man. We're doing Spider-Man. You've asked for Avengers. We're going to be back to do that when the movie gets closer. Might we wander over to DC and do this very popular DC character, possibly in the next couple of months?
Ambush Bug?
So you got it.
We're finally going to do Ambush Bug?
Ambush Bug mapped. Map my web. Ambush Bub. Ambush Bub.
Dan Slott part 2.
Now, do you like? I have never actually heard you talk at length about Superior Spider-Man. So give it to us. Lay it on us. How do you feel about Superior?
I think there's definitely 2 sides of this, right? There are people that are like, oh, Superior is a great jumping on point. And others are like, no, Superior is a horrible jumping on point because he's nothing like Spider-Man. I'm of the mind that it is a great jumping on point because he is nothing like Spider-Man, and it makes you want to know what Spider-Man was like before. Spoilers! Again, spoilers for people that haven't read Superior. Now's your chance. Put me on mute. I'll give you the thumbs up when I'm ready to stop talking mute. But this is when Doc Ock takes over Spider-Man's body. And it's just there's some legit funny moments in here. I love it. Plus, you get Ryan Stegman finally getting a flagship title. Like, where did that guy come from? Like, he was doing the Chris Yost Scarlet Spider-Man book Like, yeah, this is I love all of this, and it get better and better and better and better. The cons, they just keep bringing him back. I think that first year, that should be enough. What about you, Crisis?
So this was coming out in trades when I was like starting to get every Marvel trade. It started out just as X-Men, then it was going to be X-Men and Thor, and then it just turned into everything. And I had not really liked I got into Spider-Man right at the end of this, like right around the end of the previous period, right around ends of the Earth. So I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. I don't know if I want to see a villain turn of Spider-Man. I won't give any spoils. We'll just say he's kind of a bad guy at points here. It's so fun, and it's fun in this delightful way where it's the perfect kind of anti-hero or vigilante or even villain book where it's like that guy made some good points that one time. Like you actually kind of want him to win and do well, and you realize that part of what makes Peter have the Parker luck is that he puts other people ahead of himself all of the time, and that sometimes you have to put yourself first in order to help other people. It's like put the oxygen mask on yourself first. And this is a Spider-Man that's not just going to put the oxygen mask on himself first. He's going to make an AI robot system that's going to crawl around the airplane and put all of the oxygen masks on everybody else. And then it's going to fly the plane. And actually, did we even need people on the plane? Like it kind of takes the put the oxygen mask on first ethos to the farthest possible extent. And it's fun to watch that because it's Spider-Man winning, but in the worst possible way. It's so bingeable. I mean, this is a great weekend read, like rainy weekend, snowy weekend, families out of town weekend, and you just want to sit on a couch. Superior Spider-Man is like possibly one of my top 10 just sit on the couch in the sweatpants and binge it reads that I could name.
I like that. All right, so let's go through this.
Well, it's real damn easy. It's been completely collected. What's fun is that it wasn't completely collected at first because the original Dan Slott Superior Spider-Man Omnibus, which came out so fast and it's been out for so long compared to the rest of this Dan Slott stuff because it was huge and people wanted it. I bet they'll reprint it again because we're going to need it after we get to Big Time 2. But there was always some like extra material that wasn't in that omnibus, and then they just pulled it all together. So this is totally covered. We can go to the next slide and just see it visually.
Here we go. Look
so, I mean, come on. We live for this. This is what Omar and I are in it for. Slots like this. On the left, you have the Superior Spider-Man by Dan Slott Omnibus. It has Amazing Spider-Man 698 through 700, which I already told you it would. And then it has all of Superior Spider-Man that ran at that time. However, there's a lot of things that happen to the side of Superior Spider-Man. I'm going to explain it very quickly, but that's been all collected into the Superior Spider-Man Returns Omnibus, which technically runs from 2013 to 2024 because it collects some stuff from this original period and some stuff at other times he's popped up. So it has the last half year of Avenging Spider-Man, that team up title I told you about, because it started having Superior Spider-Man in it even before the title changed. Then the title changed to Superior Spider-Man Team Up, and it has all of that title as well. Then there was an AU issue that was part of the Age of Ultron, and they brought Superior Spider-Man back for 2 issues during Spider-Verse, but it's with the original Superior Spider-Man appearing during Spider-Verse. It's very clever. They're here. You would probably want to read them during Spider-Verse, but they're here because it's a companion book. Then there was also a Superior Spider-Man Team-Up special, and there was also an Inhumanity Superior Spider-Man one-shot. Then there's also a number of things that it crossed over to at different points. They're all listed below, as well as times that Superior Spider-Man came back, and that includes a 2018 and a 2023 comeback. So they're in this book as well. So if you just love Superior Spider-Man and you totally delight in him, and you read the first omnibus and you're saying more, then you just get the Superior Spider-Man Returns Omnibus, and that will give you all the more you want. But the point is, like, the first 18 issues of that actually run alongside the first omnibus.
All right, so let's get on to the next era. Spider-Man by Dan Slott, Part 3. What the? How is this man still writing it?
Some people felt like that at the time, Omar.
This is the big corporation. The Worldwide, the Red Goblin. Oh, sorry. Whoops, spoilers.
Well, so I'll pro-con this first because I think I'm I've learned over the years, I like this more than most other people like this. So first Spider-Man comes back from Superior in 2014, and Peter Parker's having some memory problems. So that's lasts for about 6 issues. Then we have Spider-Verse, the big one that inspired the movie, that has been a hit. It's been reprinted many times already. That's the remainder of Spider-Man's title, more or less, until Secret Wars in 2015. Then everybody at Marvel takes a break. After Secret Wars in 2015 concludes, Amazing Spider-Man is one of the first titles that relaunches in what's called All New, All Different Marvel Now. And the subtitle of that run, not in the indicia of the run, but on the collections, was called Worldwide. And that's because Dan Slott does this very interesting thing with Spider-Man where he's got his memories back and he's set up in life pretty well as a result of Superior. And he's like, what if I kind of just looked out for me? What if I kind of just was a scientist and did enjoy having money and was there for Aunt May and did all of these things? What would that be like? And of course, it winds up crashing and burning in the end because that's how every Spider-Man story ends. But it's a fun Spider-Man run where he's kind of like Spider-Man and a super scientist and James Bond for like a good 30 issues. And I'm sorry, I liked it. I like jet-setting Spider-Man. I like Spider-Man on a bigger scope. I like Spider-Man with amazing art. I like Spider-Man with all of the flash that round had. I was a little wobbly before Spider-Verse, then I loved Spider-Verse, and I love Worldwide. I do not have a single negative thing to say about it.
Let's see. I liked Spider-Verse. The Clone Conspiracy was in this era too, right?
Yes.
That was okay. Yeah. I like him taking over to this big corporation, having all these Stark-like little gimmicks that he would use. It's probably my least favorite era of the Dan Slott era, but it's still, actually, yeah, it's okay.
See, I might like this better than that first part of the Dan Slott era because it feels really cohesive. Like, especially when we start ramping up to Amazing Spider-Man 800 at the end of this, and Dan Slott starts pulling together like all of the threads he seeded all along with Venom and Anti-Venom and Carnage and Goblin and everything. You're kind of like, oh wow, it was all worth it, which I think just makes it more satisfying for me. But I like that. I always like the it's all revealed, pull the rug out, pull the threads together. That's always my favorite part. So of course I like this.
Okay. Yeah. I like the Red Goblin story. I thought that was
I
right.
love it. Yeah. Well, let's see what it includes, Omar.
Let's go.
So none of this has been an omnibus. Only Spider-Geddon as its own kind of standalone event that doesn't even really intersect with the main title, which means we have all of Amazing Spider-Man 2014 to collect. Oh, and also Spider-Verse, as I should have said, has been collected as well. So we have Amazing Spider-Man to collect. We have Spider-Man Family Business, which is an original graphic novel, Spider-Man and the X-Men. And then we have all of Spider-Man 2015 to collect, including a return to the legacy numbering. And then that includes, as Omar said, Clone Conspiracy, includes another mini event called Venom Inc. And this is actually where Spider-Man and Deadpool starts. And we've had all that in Epic Collection, but we've never had it in Oversize. So let's see how that maps.
Ta-da!
So again, I said that first box on the top left is not an omnibus. It's not an omnibus in terms of a continuous collection of the main Amazing series. We'll get into the events only collection of it in the next column in just a second. So in terms of the main series, nothing is fully an omnibus. We don't have the 2014 series fully an omnibus, and we don't have the 2015 series fully an omnibus. It's just not a thing. They did do oversized hardcovers of it at the time, but it hasn't been recollected. However, if you take an events perspective on that and you care about the Spider-Verse event, the Spider-Verse event has been collected in full in the Spider-Verse Spider-Geddon Omnibus and that is incorrect. It should say 2014 and 15 for verse. That was carried over from me pasting it from elsewhere. So it has everything from Spider-Verse. That's why it's super small. It's everything. There's really one other Spider-Man event in this period after Secret Wars, which is his participation in Civil War II. We don't have a Civil War II Omnibus, so we don't have that in Omnibus. Then there's really no more events at the end of this. I guess you could call Clone Conspiracy event if you want to, but it's co-written by Slott, so it relates to the main series. But we do have another Spider-Man ongoing title start, which is Spider-Man by Chip Zdarsky. That's Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man 2017. That has been collected in Omnibus, the Chip Zdarsky Omnibus, which then continues to collect past that title to Chip Zdarsky's other Spider-Man work, which is all non-continuity Spider-Man. So it's not in Marvel 616 continuity. So then if we go to the third column, is there anything else? Yeah, there's some other stuff. There's a Infinite Comic. There's the Family Business, OGN by Mark Waid, which introduces an important character. There's that Spider-Man and the X-Men series that I mentioned. And then there's a series of specials as well. All that's before Secret Wars. None of that has been collected in Omnibus. Then also not an Omnibus. After Secret Wars, there's a series of .1 issues that were launched at the same time as the 2015 series, not by Dan Slott. They're not an Omnibus. There's Amazing Spider-Man and Silk. The Spider-Fly Effect was a digital first series. That's not an Omnibus. But there was Spider-Man 2, again teaming up Miles and Spider-Man now that they're in the same universe as each other. That was collected in a Miles Morales Omnibus. And then finally, in the fourth column, launching after Secret Wars, we have Spider-Man Deadpool. That has never been an Omnibus before, but it is very delightful to read. It's mostly written by, I want to say, Joe Kelly in the first half and then Robbie Thompson in the second half. And I actually really... I love the Robbie Thompson's a really fun, reliable writer, but not a big name. And so there's actually 8 more issues of that in the next section. But for this section, it was 42 issues and a 1 Monsters Unleashed one-shot issue.
I don't think I could have put it better. Damn, that's a lot of info and work. Thanks for all the hard work and entertainment. Thank you all so much for watching. And yeah, Crisis killed it with this one.
Well, and Omar's, very gracious to say that he would do this knowing he was going to come right back from Comic-Con. I was like, Omar, it's got to be the week before the movie. And Omar's like, do you know what my life is going to look like? But we still found a way.
I'm still here. I'm still here. But you know what? This stuff rejuvenates me. I may be feeling like crud, but this is so nice to talk about.
All right, well, we only have 2 more eras, and one of them is Nick Spencer. Omar, I'll take your pros and cons on this one.
Nick Spencer is another one of those back to the basics type of guy. Peter Parker Luck brings that idea back. He had written this series called The Deadly Foes of Spider-Man, and it was excellent if you haven't read it. It's been available in trade and in omnibus format. But that's where the whole idea of Boomerang came from, like being roommates. I like aspects of this. I will say, for some reason, I don't know if it's me, but he was overly wordy. Like his run was, it took a while to read. I don't know why. Ryan Otley, coming off of Invincible, was the artist on this.
That was a big get at the time. Like when they announced that it was Ryan Otley, this was only, 2018. It's already 8 years ago. It was like, damn, on Spider-Man? Really? Like, it was a big, big deal.
Right. And then later on, they got Patrick Gleason, and you're like, what? Coming off of Superman? Granted, he really didn't do much on the books, except gave us some really cool covers.
The art was lovely, but...
There was a promise that MJ and Peter would be back together. And I'm sure it's not for lack of trying. Yeah. It's just, I don't know. It was a fun era. I liked aspects of it. I liked the first half more.
I struggled with this era, and I've always also struggled to articulate the why of it. And I think for me, it's because this era really felt like Nick Spencer came into it as the hugest Spider-Man fan, which is great when a big fan gets to write an era of comic books. But as a fan, it felt like he had specific unfinished business. It was like he wanted to deal with certain plots and certain stories and certain things. And as somebody who doesn't have an encyclopedic knowledge of every Spider-Man story, some of the stuff that he was fixated on, especially some of the things he really was into, like, I'm going to repair sins past and make it all make sense. And like, as somebody who doesn't have a big connection with that story, it was kind of lost on me. And not because I didn't understand it, but I was like, are we really spending this whole year trying to apologize for sins past? Like, I think this run probably rang better for people who had been reading Spider-Man continuously for the 20 years leading up to this, because I do think it was a Spider-Man fan's Spider-Man run. But as a more casual reader, I had a lot of trouble with this, and I don't know that it would be a good place to start because it's so reliant on being reverent of other Spider-Man runs.
Definitely has his favorites, just like every writer, right? Like, they come in and they're like, oh, I want to go back to that era. It's kind of hard. I still don't know how I feel about the twist. I'm not going to give it away. Of the villain through here that was built up from the beginning. And we finally got the revelation at the end. I don't know how I felt about that. I don't know how I feel about that yet. I don't think it hit. But
I do think that for that reason, this is a book that reads better as binge than monthly, because I was reading this monthly and on Marvel Unlimited, but still monthly. And
yeah,
it was like, it was so long and drawn out. Even in the Bronze Age, the hints upon hints upon hints would not have been this drawn out. But I think now that it's in 2 omnibuses, you can sit down and just get to the point much quicker. And I think it's going to be more fun that way.
and speaking of how it's collected,
Hey. So we've got the main title in Omnibus. Boom, the end. It's all, I mean, Spencer wrote it all, and then it actually transitioned to another little brain trust period where Ben Reilly takes over again, and it's written by a rotation of writers that includes Cody Ziegler and Kelly Thompson. I forgot who the other 2 were. So that's it. The only things that are not in Omnibus are the remainder of Spider-Man and Deadpool, which I already mentioned, and we get another brief Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man series, this time by Tom Taylor. That is not collected in any Omnibus either, so we can go right to the next slide because it's super, super obvious. We have 2 Nick Spencer books. Oh. Omar, can you take us to the next one, my good friend?
un momentito. There we go. Oh my gosh.
There we go. So this is actually pretty good coverage. So if we start on the column on the far left, Nick Spencer Volume 1, collected. That has the first 40 and change issues. Nick Spencer Volume 2, collected. That has the next 30 and change issues, including all of the side stuff that he did: King's Ransom, Chameleon Conspiracy, Sinister War, which very helpfully was not actually labeled Spider-Man Sinister War. It was just called Sinister War, so people thought it was going to be Mr. Sinister. No, the Sinister Six. And then we have the final part of that Brain Trust Ben Reilly era, the Spider-Man Beyond Omnibus, which I actually love that part. Love it. I think it's really fun. I think it was great to see Ben Reilly back in the driver's seat. I think the art was good. I really, really like that. Then there was one big spider event here, which was Spider-Geddon. We've already seen this omnibus in the previous section, but now we're not looking at the Spider-Verse half of it. We're looking at the Spider-Geddon half. I made the text really small because all you need to know is it collects all of Spider-Geddon, and that Spider-Geddon doesn't actually touch the main Nick Spencer run at all. It all happens off to the side of his run and a little bit in Chip Zdarsky's run. So that omnibus will not double dip the left column at all. Then there were a number of miniseries in this period, which actually crazy are all collected except for just a few. So Spider-Man had a War of the Realms miniseries. That's in the War of the Realms omnibus. Then he just had a pair of one-shots, Sensational Spider-Man Self-Improvement and Amazing Spider-Man Going Big. They haven't been an omnibus, but it's just 2 one-shots. And then there were a whole string of symbiote Spider-Man stories, which were telling stories of him from the Black Suit era, all written by Peter David. So they're all retcon stories to earlier eras. They all got an omnibus collected all together. A lot of the art was by Greg Land, so you know that I love it. Then if we go to the far right column, we have the end of Spider-Man Deadpool, again, not an omnibus, and that Tom Taylor Friendly Neighborhood, which is not big enough for an omnibus, so I don't know how we would ever get that in oversized. But if you want the main part of this era, the in continuity present day part, you just need the 4 omnibuses on the left-hand side and you're good.
I think Friendly Neighborhood, one day they can bring back the deluxes.
One day, or maybe Taylor writes some other Spider-Man, or as Omar and I have suggested many times, they could combine it with the Peter David Friendly Neighborhood and just do both of them in one book.
Ooh, the Neighborhood omnibus.
Yeah, the Neighborbus.
Everybody's favorite, the Zeb Wells era.
And this is what we're going to end on because the next era, the Joe Kelly era, is still in progress. So there's really no useful way to talk about how it will get collected. We've seen with both of these past eras that, much like with Batman now, that when a Spider-Man era wraps up, Marvel is very happy to go directly into Omnibus. That's been the case since 2018. I guess I'll go first here because I don't hate this as much as everybody else hates it. And so, which is a great ringing endorsement. But I think so much of the internet is so fixated on the things that they did. In the same way in the last run, the mystery of the villain was teased out for so long, month to month, that it got overbearing and tired. In this, the mystery of why everybody suddenly hated Peter and what was going on with Mary Jane and all that just got dragged out so far that I think by the time it got resolved by issue 25, fans had just given up. But I don't think Wells writes a bad Spider-Man. I think it's a very interesting Peter Parker. I think there's a lot of good stories in the back half of this run. I just think that people really didn't like how long the mystery is dragged out. And people do not like when the heartbreak of Peter not being with Mary Jane is made the main plot. And because Mary Jane being with someone else was the main plot of the series, fans just rejected it. But as somebody who doesn't really have a horse in that race, like I'm fine with Mary Jane being with someone else. I think it's a fine run. It's just fine. It's not great. It's not bad. It's fine. And you can read it on its own without knowing a bunch of old continuity. It does have a lot of Norman Osborn stuff in it, but it doesn't require you to have a bunch of old Norman comics committed to memory. It explains everything just fine. It's inviting to a new reader. There's no like deep lore you need to know to understand it.
Rec rap.
And that's your pro. Your only pro is rec rap.
I didn't say it was a pro. We got Ed McGuinness back again. Patrick Gleason for a little bit. I don't think it's the worst run on Spider-Man. I know people act like it is, but it's definitely not the worst run. I don't think people have read Spider-Man Omnibus Volume 7 yet. I said what I said, which is just crazy to think about, but legit, man, that was some really bad and dumb stories in Omnibus Volume 7.
Well, and they haven't read the next chapter either. So, I think availability sometimes breeds contempt.
So where's Batmantha? She's still here. There are worse stories out there, guys. There are. I'm not saying this is good. I'm just saying it's okay. I think it's going to be one of those eras that are just like, hey, remember when Zeb Wells wrote Spider-Man? Yeah, Rec Rap, right? Yeah, Rec Rap was awesome. And McGuinness was awesome. I actually really, really, really liked the beginning of this. I thought it was great. Halfway through the run and then the end, whatever. But it's okay. So what's in here?
Well, it's pretty straightforward because once again, this was a title that double shipped, so there wasn't really anything else going on at the same time as the Spider-Man. You'll see a few things in the next slide, but it was mostly Amazing Spider-Man. There was a dark web event during this that is collected in line with the omnibus, and then there's also a whole dark web omnibus. There's a gang war event collected during this, and there's also a whole separate gang war omnibus that has everything from it. What's not collected, the last 10 issues of this run are actually by Joe Kelly, who is the author of the next run of Spider-Man, so it's going to be collected when they start collecting the next run. Dan Slott returned to Spider-Man for a while and wrote basically a sequel to Spider-Verse. That has not been an omnibus yet. And there was also a second side title by Greg Weisman called Spectacular Spider-Men, not a typo, because it had both Peter Parker and Miles in it together as a team up, which was cute. Unfortunately, the writing meandered, but great concept. That has also not been an omnibus. So let's look at what that looks like visually. So let's start in the left column as we always have. We have 2 volumes of Zeb Wells. That top one, they should say volume 1 and volume 2. Apparently, I decided to delete the numbers because God knows what time of night this was as I was finishing it. But they are Zeb Wells volume 1 and volume 2. And they contain all of the Wells run, including the main part of Spider-Man participating in Dark Web and Gang War. However, if you want all of Dark Web, not just the Spider-Man issues, but the X-Men issues, the Venom issues, the Ms. Marvel issues, then you want the Dark Web omnibus. You don't need it if you just want the Zeb Wells run. Same thing for Gang War. Gang War had a bunch of side series. They basically are looking at what Gang War was happening on different blocks, where Shang-Chi was, where Luke Cage was. You don't need it to understand the Zeb Wells omnibus, but you could buy it and it's its own omnibus. And then also Spider-Man has 4 issues in the course of Venom War, which are collected in the Venom War omnibus. That yellow box in the bottom of the left, the not an omnibus box, that's that Joe Kelly, also co-written by Justina Ireland stuff that I told you about. It's going to be probably collected with Joe Kelly's Spider-Man run, which immediately follows us with a relaunch in 2025. So there's no reason it should have been in the Zeb Wells books. However, if we look at the third column, Dan Slott kind of comes back for a number of Spider-Man related things. So I already told you in the previous slide, we don't have that Spider-Man 1 through 7 collected by Dan Slott. That's with Mark Bagley, and it's like a sequel to Spider-Verse. We do have his Superior Spider-Man Returns material in the Superior Spider-Man's Return omnibus. We don't have his subsequent Spider-Boy series, which was hugely adorable. Absolutely loved it. Then we have that Spectacular Spider-Man by Greg Weisman. I mentioned that. That's not an omnibus yet. And then there's a whole bunch of other brief series here. One of them, the Savage Spider-Man, is by Joe Kelly, and so it's in a Spider-Man by Joe Kelly omnibus. Don't mistake, that's not new Spider-Man by Joe Kelly. It's mostly rotation, Brand New Day era Spider-Man by Joe Kelly, but but it also has this one newer series in it. Also, there's a Spider-Man Devil's Reign one-shot that's in the Devil's Reign omnibus. And then there's a number of things that have not been omnibus. Spider-Verse Unlimited Infinity comic, Deadly Neighborhood Spider-Man, which was first an Infinity comic and then a physical comic. There's a retcon series called The Lost Hunt. There's a Spider-Man Unforgiven one-shot that's got a vampire story in it. There's Hallows Eve, which Omar mentioned earlier. She has some other series too. There's Spider-Man Unlimited Infinity comic, the 2023 one. Again, never been physical. There's Spine-Tingling Spider-Man. Maybe that was the one that was an Infinite comic first. I like that one. And then there's another retcon series, which I really liked. I think was it by DeMatteis? Spider-Man Shadow of the Green Goblin. But none of those are part of the Zeb Wells run. None of them are required to understand the Zeb Wells run. They're just supporting miniseries.
Just one tiny little correction. The
Sure.
Hallows Eve, we got that added to the Dark Web omnibus.
Oh,
but it's not
totally forgot about that. You are right.
Yeah, because I knew it wouldn't be that in the, what was it, the Gold Goblin miniseries.
Which is definitely in Dark Web, yeah.
Yep. I'm confused.
Yeah, I guess I haven't updated my guide since we got that added, because I still have the original contents.
I got you. Let me get this really quick. Wreck-Rap or Paul, who is the least offensive? Crisis.
Paul is less offensive. Paul's a genuinely interesting character, and people are just butthurt man children who all want to see themselves as Spider-Man, so they need to think that they're going to be the ones to get with Mary Jane. Maybe thought I saw myself in Paul because he has better hair than Peter Parker, but I just feel like that Paul was like fundamentally interesting. Like, let's put a guy who's not a total hateable moron on the table so that we can actually have a real opposition character. But of course, Spider-Man fans are so blind to only liking Spider-Man and him being the only thing in their field of vision that even not a totally hateable character was turned into a totally hateable character because they're always going to hate who that other character is. How do you like that, Omar? And Wreck-Rap is just dumb.
I'm just going to say Wreck-Rap is the least offensive. I'm not going to offend you. So, okay, what is the question here? I'm so sorry. With the Spider-Man by Joe Kelly omnibus overlap with Zeb Wells Volume 2, it looks like 61 and 66 will be in both omnis.
But that might have been the original announcement, had some of it, and we went back and we were like, what are you talking about? Yeah. They fixed it. Actually, you know what? Since there's a couple changes, let me just make them and then you can hit reload so that we can show everybody a correct version of this slide. Let me just get the Hallows Eve stuff in, and then I'll tell you to reload. Oh boy, that's really small. Hold on. My failing vision is failing me in this specific task. Talk amongst yourselves. I'll give you a topic. Dark web. Didn't have very much of a web, and it wasn't all that dark. Discuss.
But it had Maddie back. That's always a plus.
That is a plus.
Anyone dating MJ was going to be hated.
Exactly. There's no getting around it.
Wreck-Rap was cool. But how does Venom figure into all of this? That will be in the Venom How to Collect.
Oh, boy.
Nonstop Spider-Man is part of the Joe Kelly Omnibus, Volume 1.
Yeah, I don't think I have Nonstop on here.
Because it was a... Nonstop leads into that other series. What was it, Avenging
Spider-Man? Yeah, leads into that one. Yep. I guess I could just throw it.
Are the 3 X-Men issues. Dark Web was the worst event you ever read. Have you read Atlantis Attacks?
All right, let me just throw Nonstop in there, and then you can hit reload. Oh my gosh, come on, Peter. Get it together. All right,
well, now,
you are safe to reload.
Look, okay, reloading. Actually, I lied. I'm not going to reload. I'm going to do this.
Because I moved my screen because I couldn't see. I'm like, how did I get all the way down there?
Now I'm going to reload. Slideshow and present. Okay, here we go. Is that better?
I don't know. Yeah, it seems to have the correction. So thank you everybody for catching. You know, I always say on my channel, but it's worth saying here too. This is why we do this stuff live. Even though Omar and I have so much of this committed to memory, Omar has great reading order videos and all the announcements. I've got reading order guides. This is like a living topic. Think solicits get were We realize things were errors. We find things in the book that weren't listed in the back cover. Part of what's fun about doing this live with you all is that you all have a ton of connection and information and knowledge about Spider-Man 2. And sometimes it means we get to fix the slides. So it'd be no fun to do this as a pre-record.
I 100% agree. Secret Wars and Amazon's attacks are Secret Wars 2. You know who would beg to differ? Al Ewing. Will Dark Web be collected in Age of Krakoa? Ooh,
now we're asking the interesting questions, Shunter Navarro.
Yeah, that is a good question. Civil War 2 was awful, but I also think Civil War 1 was awful. Is there any more slides? That's it?
No, my friend, that's the end. There's nowhere to click.
We did it.
We did it.
Yeah, we did it. Holy crap. We did it in record time, actually. 2 hours, you know, a little bit. Give and take.
Between the mic issues and the banter, I think we could call it 2 hours, and that would be fine.
Yeah, which is a good thing. I probably need some sleep. But the question is, what's the next thing we're going to tackle? Because these are fun.
Well,
you mentioned Avengers, but that's not for a few months.
Yeah, people want the non-flagship X-Men, which would kind of look like this because it would be different streams of things happening at the same time.
You're talking about New Mutants, you're talking about Wolverine, you're talking about
X-Factor, Excalibur.
Oh, and when to read it? Ooh.
All in order, and how much of it has been in Omnibus and how much is missing?
Now we're talking.
I don't know if there's this here. I don't know if you've heard of this comic book. Not a lot of people collect it, but there's this hero called Batman who has a Batman Day coming up in September.
Never heard of Batman. What's a Batman Day?
It's not with a hyphen like Spider-Man. It's not Batman. He's just all one word. Batman.
You get bit by a radioactive bat?
He did actually.
You're lying. That's a mad bat. Liar.
So I mean, could there be a Batman one? I mean, that I would have to start working on it now. My brain, I'm feeling dizzy just thinking about it.
Yeah, don't do that. What do you think the odds are Amazing Spider-Man Spectacular Web Edge Elvis will match up to the Clone Saga Omnis? We were just talking about that. We would love that. Love that. Maybe in compendiums first, then in Omnis.
If I had to pitch, if I got hired by Marvel tomorrow and they were like, Crisis, pitch me your top 3 compendiums that are going to sell like crazy. One of my first 3 would be start collecting everything Spider-Man line wide, either at Black Suit or at 296. And that would be one of my pitches for a compendium.
What are your other 2?
Probably starting X-Men Claremont from the beginning, maybe with classic X-Men included. And the third one probably would be some kind of modern Cap or Daredevil.
Ooh. Daredevil's always a hot seller.
Yeah, you can't go wrong. Like all of Bendis Daredevil in like a compendium or, you know, like whatever.
No issue.
Especially because it's always been 2 omnibuses. So to put it in one compendium would be like, especially if you put all the miniseries in.
Yeah. It's not that they're against compendiums. It's just that they haven't had the time to do it. They just lost, you know, a lot of their workforce. So hopefully, what modern era compendium would you want? I think you said it. I think Daredevil's the one. Daredevil's the way to start the modern era stuff.
Well, I mean, they obviously love doing Brubaker Cap, but they're in the middle of it in Epic Collections right now. So I don't know that we need to jump right to doing that in compendium. I'm trying, you know, whenever people ask these questions in my head, I flip through all of the big Marvel Silver Age heroes. And I think, what was the last time we had their biggest material collected? So for Iron Man, Fraction would be a great compendium, but we just got an Epic and we're all hoping for an Omnibus. So like, would that be a good compendium? And is Iron Man the biggest seller to start with in compendium? I don't know. So I think compendiums are probably going to start with like hot runs that they want to get out affordably in paperback that previously it was prohibitive to do them all in one place. So like, that's why like all of Bendis Daredevil works, because it was 2 smaller omnibuses, which means if they wanted to, they could do it as one big chunky compendium or 2 chunky compendiums. I mean, Hickman Avengers would be a place to start in Compendium, although they would probably need two. It could integrate Avengers World. Again, I also think that if we've learned anything from DC's approach, both to the compendiums and to the DC Finest, is if you put a little bit, I can actually use my actual fishing lure here. If you put a little lure at the end of the hook to draw people in, you say, this is going to have something shiny on it that you didn't have in your other format, then people get really excited. And even people like me buy this because somebody named Omar told me that it was the best mapping of this material ever. People like me buy this because I said I was never going to buy Batman unless Batman was in the right order. So I think like DC's done a couple of smart things lately. And I think if Marvel learned from them, whatever they do in Compendium has to have that shiny lore on the end to be like, I know you might have this already, but don't you want it this other way? And so I think there's things they have that they can do that with, like line-wide Spider-Man, like Bendis Daredevil with side series integrated, like Avengers, the Avengers World. Like there's things they could do.
Why do you have that?
Omar, you have to be up into the lore on my channel. You've got to watch Crushing Crisis weekly Sunday streams if you want to know all this stuff.
I was in San Diego. I was missing my flights back on Sundays.
This has been around forever, man. This is the lore is deep. That's why there's a lore. It's for the lore.
I didn't know you fished.
I don't.
Hey, Omar. McKay's Daredevil Mini and the Avengers Omni. Oh, no, absolutely not. I tried to get him to add it to the Chip Zdarsky Omnibus years back, and they were like, no. I have no idea. I mean, at this point, a deluxe hardcover would be nice. Yeah. Okay, and on that note, we will be back. We promise. And I know people have been asking me about the Evergreens. Those panels are a lot of fun. Those will probably be coming back as well. But before we leave, Crisis, where can people find you, my friend?
You know, I got a comment the other day that somebody said, hey, I've watched on YouTube. I had no idea you had a website, which is wild to me. I guess I've been on YouTube enough that people are finding me here and don't know me from there. I am, hey, Vanessa the Witch. I am on the internet as I have been for coming up on my 26-year anniversary later this month at crushingcrisis.com, crushing with a C, crisis with a K. Not coincidentally, that is also the name of my YouTube channel where I appear every Sunday with many deep dives like this with tons of data in them on all sorts of things like what is Marvel's most obscure omnibus, what is the Marvel fantasy draft for next year, looking at a complete mapping of all the epic collections, looking at DC's most wanted, all sorts of stuff. And that's every Sunday afternoon, US Eastern Standard Time. And I will be back here on Near Mint Condition. I hear I might be coming back to talk about X-Men 97 season 2 when it wraps up.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
and
we do a recap of the Omnis announced.
Yes, I know. I figured you just got to catch your breath from being back, but I assume that's going to happen like next week. So let's get ready, man. Let's go.
Okay. We're going to do that next week. We're back next week.
Apparently.
We'll figure it out.
Wow.
Thank you all so much. Don't hurt yourself. But that is it, everybody. Stay healthy and safe. We are out of here. Go and buy some Spider-Man. Da, da,